Another chapter here, sponsored by Likiliki. I made it. 8 chapters today. Another chapter here, sponsored by Likiliki. I made it. 8 chapters today. I hope you all enjoyed it and continue to support the series XOXOX Bedtime for this evil bunny. A golden palm carrying an extremely strong pressure was rushing towards Lin Feng. The crowd could already imagine Lin Feng getting blown away by that palm strike. Na Lan Feng had been defeated by a similar attack. What about Lin Feng? Get lost, said Lin Feng strictly. The light of his sword was dazzling as it filled the eyes of everyone watching. The resplendent sword light and the golden hand enhanced each other's beauty. As a result of their collision, a loud sound similar to that of a gong spread throughout the atmosphere. Qiu Yuanhao's golden body not only allowed him to carry out formidably strong attacks but also enabled him to greatly enhance his defense. It seemed like he was impervious to spears and swords. Thus, Lin Feng's sword was unable to hurt him. That was precisely what Qiu Yuanhao relied on, his defense skills. He relied on them as much as he relied on his arrogance. Ha ha ha, are you kidding me? You little doggy, you're just a piece of trash. You'll never be able to hurt me, said Qiu Yuanhao sneering at Lin Feng. His golden light began to once again fill the air. Lin Feng just sensed the colossal oppressing strength against his sword. That strength made his sword shake so much that he almost had it slip from his grasp. Really? Replied Lin Feng indifferently. If the sword was used quickly, it could never be stopped. It could overrun all fortifications. A sword user could crush and annihilate everything in his path. Nobody could survive a sword that they did not see. There were a myriad of weapon spirits, but the sword spirit was one of the strongest and most powerful weapon spirits which existed. Even though Lin Feng didn't have a sword spirit, his knowledge in it came to swords surpassed that of a great majority of cultivators who had a sword spirit. Sword force. Lin Feng whispered. His sword was dazzling. Brilliant rays of lights started to consume the atmosphere. An extremely strong qi was concentrated in the tip of his sword and emitted a loud explosion. Boom! Lin Feng's sword collided with Qiu Yuanhao's spirit again. A sound like tearing paper spread throughout the air. Qiu Yuanhao's facial expression immediately changed. He, who was incredibly strong, had had to step back to avoid that powerful sword and could not rely only on his defenses. When Lin Feng saw that Qiu Yuanhao had stepped back, he put his sword on his shoulder and said while smiling coldly, "You said that I was unable to hurt you, well then, why did you just step back?" When Qiu Yuanhao heard those words, his face twisted in anger and while staring at Lin Feng, said, "I admit that I underestimated you but I am stronger than you. You're still a little doggy, no a little chicken who cannot even withstand a single attack. You talk a lot, but everything that leaves your mouth is crap." Lin Feng said sounding exhausted. If being a genius means opening one's big mouth and stupidly judging other people, then you definitely are a real genius, a true genius, a genius unmatched beneath the heavens. How fearless. Duo Ming has been brave in the face of danger this whole time. He has no fear. When the crowd saw that Lin Feng had made Qiu Yuanhao step back, their expression was bright. They already regarded Duo Ming as someone great. They used to think that Lin Feng only had a little power, they had underestimated him, but at that moment, they really thought that he was stronger than Na Lan Feng or Lin Qian. Na Lan Feng and Lin Qian were also watching Lin Feng and started to think very highly of him. They had thought that Lin Feng wasn't that strong before but at that moment, they realized how ignorant they had been. Actually, Duo Ming was the person to be careful of, he was on a higher level than them both. Even though we can't see his face, he's obviously very young and he's a real genius. He must have been gifted ever since his birth. If he could join my clan, the Na Lan clan, that would be a great help, said Na Lan Feng, who really hoped Duo Ming would join her clan. Then, she walked towards Lin Feng and said, "Duo Ming, I admit that I underestimated you. With such strength like yours, my clan, the Na Lan clan, will really respect you. Please join my clan and support us in the future. Then, you will able to meet me every day no matter what, wouldn't that be great for you? Please join. Na Lan Feng sounded arrogant and self-confident again. She had recovered from her previous emotions. Relying on her natural beauty and feminine charms, she tried to convince Lin Feng to meet her every day. Both would gain a lot from such a relationship. Besides, she was really beautiful, so she was convinced that Lin Feng would not refuse her suggestion. Get lost. What nobody had expected was that Lin Feng had not only rejected Na Lan Feng's proposition but had also brandished his sword in her direction, which made him look extremely ruthless. Na Lan Feng's pupils were dilated. She released her divine arm spirit and started her divine punch and bombarded his sword. But nothing happened, the long sword didn't even move a millimeter. Then, a thunderous roar spread throughout the atmosphere carrying an insanely violent and explosive qi within. It looked beyond terrifying. Na Lan Feng's expression suddenly changed. She quickly dodged the attack. She was extremely quick. Boom! Lin Feng thrust out his left hand, which was followed by a loud explosive noise. That punch turned into a multitude of fist shadows superposing one another. Each fist shadow was stronger than the last. It looked like he had created a flood of punches. They were moving towards Na Lan Feng at an unimaginable speed. Na Lan Feng groaned. She was blown backwards and looked extremely fragile and weak. She slid backwards to the edge of the main fighting stage. One more step backwards and she would have fallen off. At that moment, the crowd didn't know what was going on anymore, they were too confused. Lin Feng had astonished them too many times. Each time Lin Feng moved, they found him amazing, but each time, they also realized they had been underestimating him. It seemed like his strength was ever increasing. It looked like they were underestimating him over and over again. Even at that moment, Lin Feng had defeated Na Lan Feng quickly and efficiently. They remembered how they had thought that Na Lan Feng and Lin Qian were definitely going to win this fight and had never put the young man in their eyes. They were thinking that they had been ridiculous and foolish. If Qiu Yuanhao hadn't been there, Lin Feng would have deserved to be designated as their grandfather. The crowd were not the only ones to think that way. Na Lan Feng and Lin Qian, but especially Na Lan Feng, thought that they were the only ones who had a chance and were ignoring Lin Feng when the three of them were on the battle stage, getting ready for the final battle. They had almost forgotten that Lin Feng was even there. They had really underestimated him. At that moment, they also realized how ridiculous they had been. They realized by underestimating him, they could have both died beneath his sword. "You are so strong. Would you please help me practice and improve my cultivation skills," said Lin Feng while looking at Na Lan Feng as he was blatantly humiliating her. Lin Feng was filled with indignation and anger because of that arrogant girl's behavior, but what enraged Lin Feng the most was that that girl didn't respect people, and she wanted other people to respect her, otherwise why would she send her troops at night to attack the offenders by surprise? Lin Feng couldn't stand the arrogant and haughty girl. Na Lan Feng was utterly ashamed of herself when she remembered what she had said. She had the feeling she was truly foolish. "Join your clan, meet you every day. Who do you think you are? You think you are alone at the top of the world, you think others are beneath you. What gives you the right to think that I would ever want to meet you every day?" Lin Feng continued to talk and made Na Lan Feng understand how ridiculous she was and that she had no right to be arrogant. Na Lan Feng had the feeling that her face was burning. She couldn't refute anything that Lin Feng had said. At that moment, Na Lan Xiong was looking at them. He was staring at Lin Feng, who was filled with anger and whose expression was ice cold. He had defeated Na Lan Feng so easily. That Duo Ming really looked like he was going to kill the arrogant Na Lan Feng, the greatest disciple of the Na Lan clan, a real genius. The crowd hadn't been so excited as at that moment. Lin Qian, Na Lan Feng, Duo Ming as well as Qiu Yuanhao, all were geniuses, all were stronger than the other. None of them had a strength which could make the crowd despise them, but some of them were so insanely strong that the crowd's blood was boiling in excitement, for example when looking at Lin Feng. He gradually was showing more and more strength, he was gradually becoming more and more insane. So far, he hadn't been so furious and enraged as at that moment. The more ruthless he became, the more excited the crowd became. Nobody was even willing to fight against him anymore. He was really hot-blooded and merciless. "Oh, you're still there. I have no intention to fight against you to prevent you from taking your revenge, but do you think that trying to humiliate me over and over again and thinking that you are the best person in the world makes you an amazing person?" Lin Feng had turned around and was looking at Xiao Yuanhao and then said in an ice-cold tone, "You say that Na Lan Feng is extremely arrogant and sets herself high above everyone else, that she can act that way only because she is in a small and miserable town like Yangzhou City. What about you? Are you not acting in the same way? Genius? Calling me a little doggy and a chicken. Now, I would like to ask you, what makes you a genius?" Lin Feng said that while walking. He released his spirit for the first time. All of them seemed not to have noticed that they had all released their spirit at least once, but Lin Feng had not released his spirit the whole time. In his eyes, the entire world became darkness. Lin Feng's eyes became pitch black. He looked truly evil. It looked like he had two black holes instead of eyes. He looked like a demon. Everything around him seemed to slow down. Every movement, every person and their face, every single thing. Lin Feng could see everything around him at the same time and it was crystal clear as if everything was moving in slow motion. Nothing could escape from Lin Feng's attention. He knew what everyone was doing at any given time. He could also hear his own heart palpitating. He could even sense his own blood circulating in his veins. He could sense every single movement that Xiao Yuanhao was making, including his respiration. Lin Feng was unable to speak at that moment though as if he was an omnipotent deity, as if he was in every single moment at the same time, as if he was a gigantic pair of eyes able to observe every single thing in the universe at the same time, but eyes couldn't speak. Through the silver mask that Lin Feng was wearing, Xiao Yuanhao could see Lin Feng's eyes. He had begun to tremble with fear, he had never felt so much fear in his life. He couldn't realize what he was seeing. What was wrong with Lin Feng's eyes? Why did it seem like he was staring into the eyes of death itself? At that moment, Xiao Yuanhao was confused and terrified. He could feel the fear penetrating deep into his bones and was shivering like he was frozen. He must be having a hallucination, there was nobody in front of him. Lin Feng was clearly standing in front of him but Xiao Yuanhao couldn't feel his presence at all. It was just as if he was closing his eyes and couldn't see people or sense other people's presence near him. It was as if the place where Lin Feng stood was a black hole which absorbed his presence. Boom! 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 At that moment, the atmosphere was extremely silent. Everybody was staring at Lin Feng as if he was the only person within the universe. Even though Lin Feng's steps made almost no sound at all, each and every one of his steps caused a terrifying sensation in their hearts, it sounded like their hearts were trying to burst from their chests. This was fear, this was terror. It was a primal instinct, everyone wanted to do only one thing. Run. With eyes filled with fury, Lin Feng was drawing closer and closer to the frozen Xiao Yuanhao with every step. Special thanks to Likiliki again for sponsoring my slavery. This is my first release of tonight. Special thanks to Likiliki again for sponsoring my slavery. This is my first release of tonight. Also thanks to Read Tilthybleed, he made a very creative comment which I now use for synopsis. Enjoy. XOXOX. At that moment, Lin Feng was shrouded in a mysterious aura of darkness. His steps seemed to be corresponding to some kind of special cosmic rhythm. That cosmic rhythm seemed to follow the same laws as that of elemental forces. The sword could diffuse a strong sword force with each strike, heaven and earth would also naturally produce a force which filled the world. When Lin Feng released his spirit, he could sense and comprehend things in a way that was shockingly advanced. He could understand the mysteries which confused cultivators who were several realms higher. Millions of thoughts were circulating in his brain at full speed. These thoughts gave Lin Feng strange perceptions and a feeling of understanding a higher realm. Celestial spirit transforms me into something unknown and unbelievably strong, thought Lin Feng, very pleased, but it was impossible to see it on his face. Lin Feng's right hand reached down and begun to remove his belt. Huh! The entire crowd was looking at Lin Feng's movements and could not believe he had just removed his belt. What was he planning to do? It's a sword. Everybody's eyes seemed even more shocked that his silver belt had become a sword. They had already seen that Lin Feng was carrying a sword on his shoulder, but they hadn't paid attention to what was around his waist. Lin Feng seemed to be holding something which resembled a soft and flexible sword. Lin Feng was getting nearer and nearer to Xue Yuanhao. At that moment, an extremely strong sword qi was revolving around Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng's body seemed to look like the handle of a sword, and the qi which was emanating from his sword and body had formed a blade-like shape in the air above him. Is that a spirit? The entire crowd had a strange feeling and didn't really understand what was going on. Could it be that Lin Feng had a sword spirit? Otherwise, how could he be surrounded by such an insanely strong sword qi? The crowd seemed to have come to the realization that Lin Feng hadn't released his spirit at all. He hadn't needed to, he could display a strength above that of the geniuses before them, without releasing his spirit. With each step that he took, the sword force was becoming stronger and stronger. Just by looking at the sword, everyone could tell that the killing force contained was growing with each passing moment. Even though Lin Feng was filled with murderous thoughts and his face was shockingly calm, it also seemed like he was slightly happy. The 10,000 things of creation possess a force, it is part of their innermost nature, and the sword itself has a force. Why keep using sword qi when there is unlimited force? Before, Lin Feng would need to release a lot of sword qi to use the sword force, but at this moment he was not releasing his own sword qi, but was using the sword force and taking the qi from the sword into his body. He could freely control the force to his will. He could now borrow force whenever he wanted. Therefore, he could unleash as much sword force in a single strike as he pleased. He was no longer limited by his own qi. His entire body and aura was starting to look like a sword, like an extremely sharp and ruthless sword. Lin Feng, deep in his heart, was growing happier and happier. The sword qi in his body and the atmosphere was also becoming more and more vigorous. However, at the same time, Xue Yuanhao was growing more and more concerned. A look of fear was covering his face. The whole atmosphere was being consumed by the pressure of the sword force, and it felt like the sword was trying to consume him and bathe in his blood. He could only panic. He could sense that Lin Feng was a threat to his life, and at any moment his life could end. Lin Feng could really tear through his golden body spirit with such a terrifying sword force. I shouldn't wait any longer, I should retreat, thought Xue Yuanhao. His confidence had been crushed by that enormous sword qi and terrifying sword force. Besides, Lin Feng's force was showing no signs of decreasing, instead it was still growing stronger. He was scared to approach Lin Feng because he feared that he wouldn't be able to come out of the encounter with all of his body parts. Xue Yuanhao would have never thought that he would end up in such a situation facing a nobody in Yangzhou City. He wasn't even famous, he was an unknown. On top of that, his sister had invited him to join the annual tournament, so how could he be so strong? Lin Feng at this moment was looking at him as if he was looking at a street mutt. Xue Yuanhao decided to start releasing his qi again. He could not accept such humiliation from a nobody. His golden body was surrounded by a radiant golden light, and he began releasing his colossal strength. His entire body was emanating a powerful qi, and he was even using an incredible force. Invincible golden body. In an extremely loud shout, Xue Yuanhao eventually decided to attack. He coated his fist in his indestructible aura and launched his fist towards Lin Feng. Boom! As his fist crashed through the air, the sound of explosions filled the air as if he was shattering the atmosphere which restrained his fist. Lin Feng said that word in a low voice, and suddenly, an incredibly powerful sword force emerged out of his body and tore the atmosphere apart, then rushed towards Qiu Yuanhao's body. The force of the sword made Qiu Yuanhao's body distort. Sounds of tearing and ripping could be heard from inside his body. It sounded like his body could be torn apart at any moment. The sword force which was unleashed was accompanied by an extremely powerful qi. The sword flashed through the atmosphere, cutting everything in its path, and an extremely dazzling light filled the air. The sword struck against Qiu Yuanhao's chest. Crack! Qiu Yuanhao's body cracked open like an egg as his protective layer shattered into pieces. His spirit was disintegrated. Blood splashed everywhere and Qiu Yuanhao's body was launched backwards. It was now clear that he was weaker than Lin Feng. The strong cultivator who had come from the imperial city, same as those who had come before him, had not been able to withstand a single strike carried out by Lin Feng. At that moment, the crowd was astonished, stunned, stupefied, and was staring blankly at Lin Feng. How terrifyingly strong! That was pure and undeniable strength. No one was able to deny the power that he had just unleashed. Whether it was a genius or a powerful disciple mattered not. Lin Feng had only needed a single strike to deal with them. Feel. Duo Ming is the real genius today. He was definitely the hero of the day. Nobody could compete with his strength or defy his wrath. That haughty girl actually thought she was worthy of him, but Duo Ming is someone who is favored by the gods. The crowd was still staring silently at Lin Feng. He definitely had gained a special esteem and respect within their hearts. Lan Feng considers herself as above the rest of the world, the strongest, the most beautiful. Surprisingly, she even wants to become a mentor for Duo Ming on the path of cultivation. That brat does not have eyes. Qiu Yuanhao is also extremely arrogant and thinks he is invincible. He humiliated and insulted Duo Ming, called him a little doggy. Now, he can't even withstand a single attack when facing Duo Ming. He is actually the little doggy. He actually thought he could be that arrogant in Duo Ming's city, but he was wrong. He better learn his lesson and behave in Yangzhou City. Only Duo Ming is a true genius. He has received a blessing from the heavens and the earth. He is the most talented and the most powerful person in Yangzhou City. Lin Feng couldn't know what the crowd was thinking. He was looking at Qiu Yuanhao lying on the ground. Lin Feng was expressionless. That was the price to pay for humiliating and despising others for no reason. Lin Feng turned around and didn't look at Qiu Yuanhao again. The black holes he was using as eyes then turned towards Lin Qian. On that day, Lin Feng was going to use Lin Qian and wipe away all his past humiliations. It looks like you and me are the last ones left. Let's continue, said Lin Feng, showing no emotions, which frightened Lin Qian. She did not know what he intended to do. Her strength was very similar to that of Lan Feng. Qiu Yuanhao had been able to defeat Lan Feng with ease. But the strong and powerful Qiu Yuanhao had not been able to block Lin Feng's sword, which gave Lin Qian the impression that she had no chance to defeat Lin Feng at all. Who the hell is that guy? Surprisingly, he is so strong, Lin Qian whispered. On that day, her self-confidence had been crushed. She used to think that she was amazing because she had reached the first Ling Qi layer. She used to think that she could defeat anyone who was before her. She was a true genius and no one else mattered. Her state of mind was the same as that of Lan Feng. Then Qiu Yuanhao had appeared from nowhere and made her understand that even though she had reached the first Ling Qi layer, there were many others who were still stronger than her and much more talented. But at the moment when she had thought that Qiu Yuanhao was incredibly strong, Lin Feng had cut him down with a single sword strike. This had made her feel extremely inferior. I think it's useless to continue after these events, said Lin Qian, sounding cold and detached. Even though her self-confidence had been crushed, she still didn't want to show it. She didn't want to admit that she wanted to surrender. Lin Feng's pitch-black eyes looked like they were smiling. Even at that point, Lin Qian was unwilling to stop acting high and mighty. Moonlight feather agility. Lin Feng's body vanished without trace. Lin Qian, step back, said someone shouting extremely loudly. Lin Ba Dao was frightened and didn't want Lin Feng to attack Lin Qian. He had been paying attention all along. When he saw Lin Feng's move, he immediately warned Lin Qian. At the same time, his body transformed into a whirlwind breaking through the air and moving straight towards the fighting stage. Lin Qian was also aware of the danger and she immediately released her universal ice and fire spirit. Both ice and fire was coming out of her hands and she threw herself towards Lin Feng whom had appeared in front of her. Boom! Lin Feng blocked the attack, the ice had melted and the fire was extinguished. Immediately after, his body shot towards Lin Qian. He would show no mercy at all, a single sword strike. Lin Feng thrust his sword at Lin Qian. Let's see if you dare, shouted Lin Ba Dao while trying to intervene. A scorching fire was unleashed from the palm of his hand and moved to block Lin Feng's sword. Boom! The fire was unimaginably powerful and had weakened the power of the sword which was about to crash into Lin Qian's body, but the force of the sword still struck her and sent her flying towards the edge of the fighting stage. She was alive but gravely injured. How dare you violate the rules of the annual tournament like that? Lin Feng shouted and then added, because you are worthless, you need to make a spectacle of yourself and need the help of the older generation to back you up. What a disgrace. The Lin clan has finally shown its true colors. How shameless. Na Lan Xiong remained silent. That whole tournament had deviated too much from what he had planned. Since it was this way, he felt like everything right now was meaningless. Lin Feng had injured his daughter, Na Lan Feng. Could Na Lan Xiong have mercy on Lin Feng? How audacious. Who do you think you are, to be that arrogant? Lin Ba Dao saw that Na Lan Xiong remained silent, he didn't hesitate at all and tried to slap Lin Feng's silver mask. Lin Feng didn't try to avoid the attack. His silver mask directly fell down onto the ground and his real face appeared. It's you, Lin Ba Dao and Lin Qian said these words at the same time. When they saw Lin Feng's real face, they were stupefied. They felt like a blizzard was spreading through their veins and an icy cold chill ran down their spines. At the same time, all the members of the Lin clan in the crowd were stupefied when they saw Lin Feng's real face. That insanely strong and powerful young man surprisingly is a member of the Lin clan, or actually a former member of the Lin clan who had been expelled for apparently being weak. It's him. No wonder that he would dare attack me. I sent troops, but he killed them all, now I am next. Na Lan Feng was extremely surprised. She was shaking from fear as she had sent a large number of people to kill him but he had killed them all, leaving no survivors. When she remembered what had happened at the Whistle Wind restaurant, Na Lan Feng had a bitter feeling in her heart. What had given her the right to act towards Lin Feng over such petty problems? She was regretting all of her actions to this point. She had created a terrible enemy for herself and her clan. When the crowd saw the expression that the Lin clan members had, they were surprised. They were confused and were wondering who the mysterious person under the mask was. Who was that guy who made the Lin clan members so shocked? Impossible, how did you become this strong? Lin Qian couldn't believe what she had witnessed, all that strength that he had displayed. An insanely strong and powerful young man, he was a genius. She would have never considered that he could have strength to fight her, she used to think he was a piece of trash. The feeling she had at this moment was unbearable, if he was really trash then what was she? There's no doubt. Your eyes are correct. I am Lin Feng, the one that you all despise so much, also known as the piece of trash within the Lin clan. Lin Feng sounded indifferent. His simple answer made the hearts of the Lin clan members extremely heavy. This young man should have been the glory and pride of the Lin clan, with him by their side, their future would have been glorious. They should have hailed him as a hero, but instead they had ridiculed him and expelled him from the clan. What complete foolishness they all had, they did not deserve such a genius. The crowd was stirring and growing restless. The Lin clan had abandoned Lin Feng. The rumors said it was a piece of trash who almost died against Lin Hong. Everybody in the Lin clan despised him. Could this terrifying young man really have needed help from his father against someone so much weaker than himself? The rumors were beginning to sound more and more untrue. What had happened on the stage was shocking. Nobody would have thought Qiu Yuanhao would appear. They had discovered a genius, but that genius was the one known as a piece of trash according to rumors from the Lin clan. No wonder that he was wearing that silver mask. Members of the audience slowly started to understand the chain of events that had occurred and why this mysterious young man had no background. Lin Qian, people as arrogant as you are very rare. You think that you stand at the top of the world, looking down on others. But it is only possible for you to be that way within the Lin clan, that's all. Never say that you are a genius because all you are is a foolish little girl. Lin Ba Dao, you are a weak shell of a man compared to my father, you will never be as strong as him. But you acted in collusion with the honorable elder to overtake the power and make my father abdicate. On top of that, you wanted to expel him from the clan. You believe in Lin Qian's power more than anything, thinking that she will someday be the hope for the clan, but now, everybody can see that Lin Qian cannot compete with me. She's a worthless little girl who can only run her mouth. Don't you feel stupid? Don't you think you are laughable? Are you not ashamed of yourselves? Don't you regret what you did? Of course, I understand that you are not going to admit it even if you do regret what you did. However, today is only the beginning. Today I have only proved how stupid, foolish and shameless you all truly are. Your words, your faces, you are all filthy. Someday I will return with my father and we will take justice. Suddenly, Lin Feng had stopped being silent. Every single sentence he had said had penetrated deeply into the hearts of the Lin clan members. It moved them and shocked them. Lin Feng was right. Every member of the Lin clan had dared despise Lin Hai and wanted Lin Ba Dao to become the head of the Lin clan. It wasn't because Lin Ba Dao was strong though, because Lin Ba Dao wasn't even in the same league as Lin Hai. All of this was because of Lin Qian and her talent. They all looked at her as if she was a deity. They had thought that Lin Qian had limitless power. They had thought that she could make the Lin clan rise up and that they would all benefit in the future. But they would have never thought that their beloved and cherished Lin Qian could be surpassed by someone else, especially by another genius who had been expelled from the clan. The most bitter thing was that he was the son of the former head of the clan. That was the beginning, nothing more. Lin Feng would become much stronger. He had huge potential and limitless talent. Would Lin Qian ever be able to catch up to him? Why had a genius like him been expelled from the Lin clan? Why had nobody acknowledged him when he defeated Lin Hong? Why had nobody given him the chance to prove them wrong? Why had they continued to think that Lin Qian was their only hope and raised her above him in every possible way? It wasn't until this moment that the Lin clan truly understood the grave mistake that they had made. They had treated a hero, such a rare genius, with nothing but disdain. They had brought the hatred of him and his father down upon themselves. Had any of them truly been thinking of the clan? Regret? Of course, the Lin clan members regretted everything. They knew that nothing could ever turn back time before they had made such mistakes. They had made a big mistake by hurting a genius of Yangzhou City. Even an extremely strong cultivator who had come from the imperial city wasn't a match for a single strike from Lin Feng. "You animal, shut the hell up," shouted Lin Ba Dao furiously because he couldn't bear hearing Lin Feng's words anymore. "Lin Ba Dao, you are a worthless clan member. Using my father's uncle to overtake his power. Your goal was to create confusion within the Lin clan. You never cared about our family ties, about the same blood flowing in our veins. From the bottom of your heart, all you ever wanted was kill my father and me. Lin Ba Dao, you are not even worth being called an animal yourself, you are nothing but a worm. I am ashamed to think that we share the same blood. Even if I am not part of the Lin clan anymore, knowing that we share the same blood will always be a disgrace to me. Even if no one ever finds out we share the same blood, knowing this fact makes me sick. Every single word Lin Feng had said was like a sharp knife stabbing Lin Ba Dao's heart. Lin Feng was usually a quiet person, he would never spend long time speaking. He wasn't an expert when it came to the expression of his feelings and emotions, but who could ever understand him? He had already lived another life. Lin Ba Dao's heart was pounding furiously. He could never forgive Lin Feng. He had no regret and could only feel the hatred inside himself. Head of the Na Lan clan. Please don't blame me for interfering in this match, said Lin Ba Dao while looking at Na Lan Xiong. These are your clan's internal affairs. I obviously have no right to intervene, replied Na Lan Xiong in an indifferent tone. When he saw them, Lin Feng smiled coldly. He had humiliated and injured Na Lan Feng. Na Lan Xiong already hated him bitterly. But Lin Ba Dao was still scared to be beaten by Na Lan Xiong because he had broken the rules of the tournament. In my eyes, this annual tournament is a big facade. You only want the Na Lan clan members to win. You can't stand losing to anyone else. I don't want to participate in these kind of stupid events again. It's clear that if a genius injures a member of your clan, you will later send people to attack them by surprise. The Na Lan clan is a huge joke. Truly shameless. Lin Feng's black eyes looked ice cold. People were still shocked by Lin Feng's aura. There was no one that did not have their eyes fixed on Lin Feng after the power he had shown. Lin Qian, didn't you want to kill me? So now, I will take your life. Lin Feng said that while laughing evilly. He started walking towards Lin Qian. Lin Ba Dao was shaking in anger. He was in front of Lin Qian obstructing the way. Die, shouted Lin Feng demonically. He unsheathed his long sword from his back and moved it in Lin Qian's direction. Thunderous roars spread throughout the atmosphere. Do you think you even have a chance? Lin Ba Dao shouted while looking at Lin Feng who had unsheathed his sword. A strong qi filled the atmosphere and thunderous roars filled the air. Moonlight feather agility. Lin Feng suddenly vanished but didn't move towards Lin Ba Dao and Lin Qian, he rather moved to a more distant place. Oh no! Na Lan Xiong turned pale with fright. He stood up. He raised his head and saw Lin Feng above Na Lan Feng's head as if he was falling from the sky. Lin Feng's target was Na Lan Feng. Na Lan Feng also found out that she was Lin Feng's target and was filled with shock. She saw his eyes filled with darkness moving closer, she attacked with a divine punch, but Lin Feng could use his soft sword with extreme speed. Na Lan Feng's fist shadow vanished and Lin Feng's cold sword was pressed against in Na Lan Feng's throat. How dare you, shouted Na Lan Xiong short before arriving near Lin Feng. One more step and I will kill her, said Lin Feng in an ice-cold tone. He looked expressionless. Nobody had any doubt when it came to Lin Feng. If Nan Lan Xiong made one more step, Lin Feng would probably kill Na Lan Feng. Na Lan Feng was looking at Lin Feng's darkness-filled eyes. She had never been in such a situation. In Lin Feng's black eyes, she was just a worthless little brat. He had taken her as a hostage very easily as if she truly had no strength. At that moment, Na Lan Feng obviously understood that Lin Feng had taken her as a hostage. The crowd was looking at Lin Feng while remaining speechless. That remarkable young man who seemed to be blessed by the god was also extremely reckless and ambitious. Everybody thought he was insane and he surprisingly dared humiliate every clan again and again. The crowd could only stand there in silence as they watched these events. Maybe when they had seen Lin Feng appear for the first time when he had joined the tournament, they already had the feeling that things were not going to go as planned. Even the events with Qiu Yuanhao were unexpected. Lin Feng however had been insulting all of the powerful clans from the moment he first appeared. He had been offending everyone because of something that happened before the tournament. Na Lan Feng had made a mistake before and it seemed like Lin Feng had already planned to use her to escape. This was a ruthless and insane young man. Only somebody as strong as Lin Feng could be so reckless with his actions. Only someone as insane as Lin Feng could have planned this from the start. His words were mysterious and his actions were insane. He had drawn the attention of the entire crowd. When Lin Ba Dao wanted to take his revenge, Lin Feng had pleasantly surprised the entire crowd with his words, including Na Lan Xiong. Lin Ba Dao and Na Lan Xiong were helpless in front of Lin Feng, who was holding Na Lan Feng as a hostage. They looked like monkeys who were dancing to his tune. Lin Feng was like a fierce tiger, he had completely captured his prey. Absolute control. Lin Feng was in absolute control. Absolute control. Lin Feng was in absolute control. Lin Feng was using his celestial spirit, and that moment he was able to see everything extremely clearly, as if he was looking down on the world frozen in time. The moment when he had released his celestial spirit, his brain had started operating at an incredible speed and could solve even the most challenging problems. Everything that was happening around him was instantly processed by his brain and nothing was escaping his attention. Every single word Lin Feng had said fascinated the crowd and drew their attention. Na Lan Xiong and Lin Ba Dao were furious at this turn of events. At the moment when Lin Feng had threatened to kill Lin Qian, he hadn't killed her and instead had taken Na Lan Feng as a hostage. The most fascinating thing was that even though Lin Feng's brain was operating at an incredibly terrifying speed, he remained calm and level-headed. Lin Feng sighed, his celestial spirit had completely changed him as if he had transformed into something no longer human. His spirit enhanced all of his skills and abilities. Besides, that was also only the first layer of the celestial spirit. There was also the second layer which could be used at any time, his book spirit. Let her go. Na Lan Xiong said with a voice filled with killing intent. Let her go. Is that even possible? Said Lin Feng while smiling evilly in his heart. As before, his face was expressionless, which made him look exceptionally ruthless. I can guarantee that if anyone tries to get near me or tries to attack me, I swear to you all that the first one to die will not be me. Lin Feng had said these ruthless words with almost no change in his expression, showing no fear. His words felt like a slap in the face. Na Lan Xiong could not help but twist his face in anger. Let's go. Lin Feng's soft sword slightly moved. In a flash, a thread of blood appeared on Na Lan Feng's throat even though the soft sword had only slightly pressed on her throat. Na Lan Feng was terrified when she felt a sharp burst of pain. Lin Feng's pitch-black eyes made her especially terrified. She didn't believe that Lin Feng would let her go easily once they escaped. His eyes look inhumane and heartless, they were not the eyes of a man but that of a demon. She may truly die at his hands. Na Lan Feng obeyed Lin Feng and started walking towards the exit. Remember my words, said Lin Feng while looking at Lin Ba Dao, who was very close to him at this moment. Lin Feng once again pressed his sword against Na Lan Feng's throat and another trace of blood appeared. Step back, shouted Na Lan Xiong at Lin Ba Dao, who was standing at a strategic point. He could see that Lin Ba Dao was still planning to attack Lin Feng. Na Lan Xiong's tone made Lin Ba Dao shiver. He hated Na Lan Xiong for standing in his way. He would have never thought that Lin Feng would be so sly and take Na Lan Feng as a hostage. Nobody would dare to confront him, for fear of angering Na Lan Xiong. Lin Feng, if I let you off, will you let my daughter go? Asked Na Lan Xiong with a stern tone. Are you trying to have me kill her right here and now? Lin Feng's black eyes just stared at Na Lan Xiong, showing no emotion. Na Lan Xiong felt powerless against facing Lin Feng. He didn't dare do anything because in Lin Feng's eyes was pure darkness which made him look incredibly evil. He was scared that Lin Feng would be angered and kill Na Lan Feng. They didn't talk much longer. Lin Feng and Na Lan Feng gradually disappeared into the horizon. Even if Na Lan Xiong couldn't do anything, he was still praying that nothing tragic would happen to Na Lan Feng. Finally, the crowd saw Lin Feng's silhouette disappear into the distance. They could not help but sigh a breath of relief at seeing him leave. They had felt like this was all a chaotic dream. They were all exhausted at the events which had come to pass. Lin Feng had done so many astonishing things. Everyone had more than enough excitement for one day. Lin Feng. Lin Feng. Lin Feng. In every corner of the city, only one name could be heard. The Na Lan clan, the Gu clan, even Qiu Yuan Hao and Qiu Lan, all had just one name in their mind and on their tongue, Lin Feng. Lin clan members all seemed to carry a look of regret and deep thought on their faces. Lin Feng was a prodigy who had once belonged to the Lin clan, but when he had revealed his power and become known as a great talent, the glory wasn't attributed to the Lin clan. Actually, it was the opposite, they were going to suffer from harsh criticism. A talented young man who was once a member of the Lin clan had been expelled from the clan for being weak. How could they have been so stupid? No matter what, after the battles of that day, Lin Feng had already gained an incredible reputation within Yangzhou City. Very quickly, people in Yangzhou City would all hear the name, Lin Feng. The former piece of trash of the Lin clan had become a genius who had received the blessing of heaven and earth, however he was stupidly thrown away by the Lin clan. Lin Feng obviously didn't think about that and didn't really care. All he wanted was to leave Yangzhou City. He didn't know when he would go back to Yangzhou City. He only knew that when he would go back there, people would respect him and acknowledge his power. There would be nobody who would dare disrespect or despise him. He wouldn't need to rely on a hostage next time. He would come and go freely as he pleased. 10 days later, Lin Feng had arrived at the Yunhai sect on Qianli Shui. Gazing at the mountains where the precipice of the abyss was situated, he could not help but remember fond memories. The path of cultivation was like a mountain which you continue climb and then one day, you can look down at creation from the top of the world. Even though Lin Feng had shown outstanding talent in Yangzhou City, he wasn't the least bit conceited. He only knew that he had made some progress on the path of cultivation, but the world was big and the path was long. He didn't know exactly how vast the continent of the 9 clouds was or how powerful the people were. There was no reason to be arrogant when he truly knew so little. There were many geniuses in the continent, for example, that man who accompanied Lin Qian who had a legendary rock spirit. He was so young and much stronger than Lin Feng. He already had the power to confront Yunhai sect elder. He dared come to the Yunhai sect and demand respect. When I get back to the pavilion, the first thing I should is choose new techniques of higher difficulty and take the exam to become an elite disciple. Joining the elite disciples will enable me to be a real Yunhai sect disciple and I'll be able to participate in the internal affairs of the sect. At the moment, I can't do anything as an ordinary disciple. Lin Feng was thinking about what he was going to do and it was already clear to him what he had to do next. At that moment, he could hear the thunderous hooves of horses in the distance, the ground was shaking. Lin Feng was surprised. He immediately turned around and saw a cloud of dust rise into the air. Armored horses were galloping at full speed. Qi Shui. Lin Feng was stupefied. Those armored horses were the color of blood. Everyone knew of these horses, it was an extremely valuable horse. It was 3 times faster than his Qianli Shui and it was extremely expensive. It was said that a Qi Shui cost 1,000 gold coins. It was also said that some special troops had Qi Shui horses. These troops would most likely be battle-hardened soldiers. But what were these troops doing in a territory which was under the domination of the Yunhai sect? The precious armored horses were approaching at full speed. The people riding them were all soldiers who looked extremely well trained. They were all ferocious and looked extremely dangerous. These people can go wherever they want, whenever they want. They are not like the self-proclaimed masters and geniuses of Yangzhou City, thought Lin Feng while slightly trembling at the sight of them. These people were extremely strong, deadly warriors. They were real masters to the extent that the weakest ones of the group would have at least reached the 9th Qi layer but the great majority would have broken into the Ling Qi layer long ago. They are really elite troops. The smell of blood fills the air even miles away. There were about 30 of them, and when they got close to Lin Feng they suddenly slowed down. They raised their heads and looked at the mountain where the Yunhai sect was located. This was their destination. Lin Feng had a strange feeling and his expression changed. He could see a figure which looked familiar. When his eyes focuses he could recognize the person. It's her. On one of these Qi Shui, there was a girl wearing a red armor. She looked grandiose and heroic. Besides, she was extremely beautiful. Lin Feng would never forget her face. Shit! Lin Feng thought while remaining vigilant. He hadn't thought he would meet her there. She was obviously with this group of deadly warriors. That incredibly beautiful girl was a respected and illustrious disciple of the Yunhai sect, Liu Fei. "Is that you?" said Liu Fei coldly. She looked angry while looking at Lin Feng. He had dared to disrespect her before. She hadn't taken her revenge yet, but had not forgotten about it. Lin Feng was cursing in his mind. The group that was with her, they were all much stronger than the group he killed in Yangzhou City. They looked like battle-hardened warriors. If they wanted to fight, Lin Feng would be unable to compete with them. That group was so much stronger than him. He was in a desperate situation as they were both faster and stronger than him. He did not want to fight. "Fei Fei, you have a problem with that guy," said a young man next to Liu Fei while looking at Lin Feng. Because Liu Fei looked angry, that guy had also started to show anger. "No problem, he's one of my fellow disciples of the Yunhai sect. We recognized each other." That was unexpected. Liu Fei had shook her head and said that indifferently. Then, she didn't look at him again and continued. "Shall we go inside?" said Liu Fei, and then they left while heading towards the Yunhai sect. The young man next to Liu Fei glanced at Lin Feng with slight killing intent in his eyes. Lin Feng frowned. He didn't understand what was going on. As far as he could remember, Liu Fei was rude and cruel. Why would she let him go? I will probably release the remaining 2 chapters today. Forget it. Lin Feng didn't want to think too much about it. It looked like her status was much higher amongst those soldiers than he had thought. Their power was above his right now. "I am not extremely strong and I do not have any troops to support me," thought Lin Feng while looking at the group from behind. Lin Feng was determined to do his best once he got back to the Yunhai sect and join the elite disciples. Lin Feng rode his horse towards the mountain. 2 guards were standing there, their heads dropped to the ground and they did not look at him as he passed. These were the same guards he had met the first time. They had now learnt their lesson and had been humbled. As before, the Yunhai sect's atmosphere was filled with the feeling of power borrowed from heaven and earth. It was very inspiring and motivated Lin Feng even more to increase his strength. Especially since every year, there was the exam to become an elite disciple. The strongest ordinary disciples could join and possibly enter the elite disciples, which meant they could become real Yunhai sect disciples. Besides, it was also said that the top elite disciples could directly sit an exam, and if they passed they would be able to join the core disciples of the Yunhai sect, which made them the foundation of the sect's power. The Yunhai sect had a formidable influence in the Shuiyu country. While they were not the strongest sect, they were still could not be easily trifled with. Those core disciples were considered the pride and glory of the sect. Even in cities outside of their territory, a core disciple of the Yunhai sect would be treated with respect and wherever he went. They were supported by the sect itself. It was also the case within clans. For example, in the Lin clan, the Honorable Elder or Lin Ba Dao also regarded core disciples of a sect with respect. In the Lin clan, they wanted Lin Ba Dao to be the head of the clan because they had hoped that Lin Qian could become a core disciple of the Haoyu sect. This would bring them great honor and greatly rise their status within the country. If Lin Qian progressed, she could even become an elder in the Haoyu sect, which would make the Lin clan extremely influential. Unfortunately, Lin Feng, who everyone was sure would become an outstanding figure in the future, wasn't a member of the Lin clan anymore, and there was still regret remaining over the events. When he arrived in the Yunhai sect, Lin Feng first decided to wash the dirt from his body as he had traveled for 10 days. He then put on a clean set of Yunhai sect disciple robes. It was now time for him to head to the Xingqian Pavilion. He had now broken through to the Ling Qi layer. He needed a more advanced agility technique and a higher level martial skill. Only then, he would be to fully unleash his power during a battle. Protector Bei. Lin Feng saw the old man who had the same expression as he always had at the entrance of the Xingqian Pavilion. He looked like he was staring blankly into the horizon. But Lin Feng was extremely happy to know that old man was a protector of the sect, and when needed he would become extremely energetic and powerful. Lin Feng knew that the old man sitting in front of the Xingqian Pavilion could look sluggish, but that it was only one aspect of his personality. However, if Lin Feng hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would hardly believe that the old man could actually be so powerful. Protector Bei's expression suddenly changed. He raised his head and looked at Lin Feng with sparkling eyes. He then smiled, which was extremely rare, and said, "Oh, you have finally come back." "Yes, I came to find a new agility technique to practice," said Lin Feng while smiling and nodding. "Go to the first floor." "Take your time," replied Protector Bei. "Thank you, Protector Bei, thank you for your help and sorry to bother you." Lin Feng's goal was to go to the first floor and gain advanced skills. According to the rules of the Yunhai sect, only those who had reached the Ling Qi layer or those who were elite disciples could go to the first floor. The disciples who had reached the Ling Qi layer but not yet joined the elite disciples would have a limited time when selecting skills. They could not take their time. They would also not have access to the second floor without becoming an elite disciple. There was an oil lamp which was lit when they entered the room, and when that oil lamp went out, they would have to leave. During that short time frame, they had to find suitable agility techniques and martial skills for themselves. The time these oil lamps stayed on was normally not enough time to find suitable agility techniques and martial skills. There were a myriad of martial skills and agility techniques in the Xingqian Pavilion. It was very hard to find something suitable for oneself in a limited time, as there was just such a large number. But rules are rules. Nobody dared violate the rules of the sect. Many Yunhai sect disciples wanted to become elite disciples to be able to fully access the skills and agility techniques on this floor and the second floor of the Xingqian Pavilion. That way, they would be able to greatly improve their abilities and find the best techniques for their fighting styles. No need to thank me or be sorry for bothering me. Just don't go to the second floor. You can stay as long as you wish on the ground floor and first floor," said the old man indifferently. Lin Feng was astonished, stupefied, stunned. Right after, he had a huge smile on his face. Lin Feng definitely was very lucky to have the protector watching over him. "Thank you very much, thank you esteemed protector." Lin Feng became a bit more familiar at that moment when talking to the old man. He then entered the Xingqian Pavilion and immediately after moved towards the stairs leading to the first floor. "Little fellow, I'm just worried that your current level of cultivation wouldn't match those skills and techniques on the higher floors, otherwise I would have told you to go to the third floor," thought Protector Bei while looking at Lin Feng's silhouette and then shaking his head and smiling. He then whispered, "The precipice of Zhanggu, 8 drums. You have changed the history of the Yunhai sect. You will always be able to enter my humble Xingqian Pavilion as you please." Protector Bei had a great impression of Lin Feng, but the other disciples of the Yunhai sect didn't think that way. When they saw Lin Feng, who was wearing the robes of the ordinary disciples and immediately went up to the first floor of the Xingqian Pavilion, many people were stupefied. "Who's that guy? How can he go past the ground floor of the pavilion? I don't know, but he's clearly an ordinary disciple, and he is not one of the disciple known for breaking into the Ling Qi layer." Many people were envious and jealous. Not only could higher-level agility techniques enable cultivators to greatly increase their speed and benefit cultivation, but it also enabled them to greatly increase their overall fighting strength. It enabled them to use movements of a higher difficulty. In a battle, it could enable them to have a clear advantage in speed over their opponent. Who wouldn't want that? All the agility techniques and martial skills were divided into different levels: sky level, earth level, Xian level, yellow level. These skills and agility techniques were spread over 4 levels in the Xingqian Pavilion. On the ground floor of the pavilion were yellow level skills and agility techniques. On the first floor were skills and agility techniques of the Xian level and were extremely powerful. The first floor of the Xingqian Pavilion was much more quiet than the ground floor. There were very few people on the first floor. They were all quietly looking for amazing skills and techniques suitable for themselves. At that moment, many people saw Lin Feng go upstairs and looked at him with disdain. There are less martial skills and agility techniques than on the ground floor. Lin Feng thought while looking at all the skills on the first floor. No matter what, these skills and agility techniques were extremely valuable. They were obviously very hard to find, therefore there were less skills on the first floor than on the ground floor. Let's find an agility technique, thought Lin Feng while looking at all the books, and then immediately started to read them and analyze the skills. Purity technique, Xian level, absorbs the energy of the power of heaven and earth to purify the body, regulates body functions and provides greater control over the body. Practice to the highest level and your body will be faster, stronger and controlled with ease. Please note that this skill is suitable for any spirit. It cannot be practiced very quickly as the muscles and vessels must first become used to the change within the body. Improving too quickly would have the opposite effects and the body would become exhausted and possibly damaged. That was one of the techniques. There was a small note written on that book enabling those of the younger generations to understand it in more detail. I guess I will take this one, said Lin Feng in a low voice. As if he hadn't seen the warning written by hand in the book, Lin Feng immediately chose that technique. Lin Feng didn't even look at the other techniques. He knew what he was doing. Everything about that purity agility technique looked useless, but Lin Feng thought it was great. Let's find some martial skills now, thought Lin Feng while moving towards to the skill shelves. Dead forest. Scorching apocalypse. Deadly frost. Lin Feng was looking at all these skills but found none of them satisfying. 8 strikes of desolation. Xian level. 8 extremely powerful strikes which cover the heavens and are almost impossible to dodge. This skill drew Lin Feng's attention. I will also take this one. Lin Feng took that book but didn't leave. He needed another martial skill. It had been too long since he had practiced any new martial skills. So he needed to increase his battle power quickly. After a while, Lin Feng found a sword skill which was extremely powerful and of the Xian level, but it required a sword spirit to perfectly comprehend. It also required a perfect understanding of sword force. If someone did not understand the world and the elemental forces within, it would be impossible to comprehend this skill. It was called Sword of Nirvana. Many disciples had avoided this skill as the conditions to learn it were incredibly harsh. They would not only need to understand sword force, but the world around them and other elemental forces. They would need a great deal of comprehension. Lucky, I have found another. Lin Feng was excited. It seemed like the Sword of Nirvana had been prepared especially for him. Requiring understanding of sword force and also requiring a perfect understanding of the world and the forces contained within. He could gain a perfect understanding of the world and forces within by using his spirit. It was a perfect skill for him. This skill was made for him. The requirement of having a sword spirit in order to learn the skill was a joke. Was someone who had a sword spirit more knowledgeable about swords than Lin Feng? Let me have a look at that skill book, suddenly said a voice coming from the left. Let me have a look at that skill book, suddenly said a voice coming from the left. Lin Feng turned around and saw 2 young disciples. There was a young man who looked extremely evil while staring at the other disciple. Besides, his manner of speaking sounded like he was giving the other disciple an order. That other young disciple was called Qin Chen. Lin Feng had already seen him before. He was an ordinary disciple, just like Lin Feng. However, he was much more famous than Lin Feng. This skill is mine, said Qin Chen while coldly staring at the evil-looking disciple. It wasn't rare to see elite disciples despise ordinary disciples, and this was clearly a case of an elite disciple trying to bully Qin Chen. "How insolent, for an ordinary disciple to dare refuse my request," shouted the young man furiously while releasing an extremely strong qi from his body. "Pfff, Li Lin, don't think that I don't know who you are. You are one of the weakest elite disciples. You only dare show off in front of us ordinary disciples. This year at the upcoming elite disciple exam, Qin Chen will remove that smug head from your body. I will make your head roll from the fighting stage into the dirt where you belong," said Qin Chen while emanating killing intent. "Li Lin, you are an ordinary little boy, that's all you are. Ha! You're a joke." All those who were on the second floor of the Xing Chen pavilion were looking at them and laughing. Qin Chen was right, Li Lin was an elite disciple, but he was extremely weak in comparison with the other disciples of the sect. In order not to feel inferior in front of other people, he regularly went and bullied ordinary disciples, trying to use his authority and power to gain a feeling of superiority. He hadn't thought that today he would meet this kind of stubborn ordinary disciple who would actually refuse and insult him. Qin Chen was one of the top-ranking ordinary disciples within the sect. He had a flame spirit. All of his fire-based skills were extremely powerful, and he could gain insights into fire-based techniques much quicker than other disciples. Nobody could compete with him. He was extremely strong. His main objective was to participate in the elite disciple exam of the Yunhai sect and become an elite disciple where he could gain extra resources for cultivation. Obviously, when Li Lin heard what Qin Chen said, he became furious. He had already heard Qin Chen's name and knew exactly how powerful he was. It really was his bad luck that he chose to bully the wrong disciple. "There's misunderstanding." "Alright, I'm not looking at that skill," said Li Lin, whose facial expression had completely changed. He then retreated away from Qin Chen. Laughter could be heard amongst all of the disciples who were present on the second floor. They clearly thought that Li Lin was a good-for-nothing elite disciple. He had just been terrified by an ordinary disciple. To have an elite disciple back down from an ordinary disciple was a humiliation in itself. "What are you laughing at? Laugh again and I will cripple your cultivation." Li Lin regretted his previous actions because he had humiliated himself in the end. He had the feeling that everyone was laughing at him. He needed to find someone so he could have relief from his fury, so his threat was directed towards Lin Feng. He couldn't afford to provoke Qin Chen more than he already had, but he did have the abilities required to provoke other ordinary disciple. Lin Feng was about to leave the pavilion. He was stupefied at the threat he had received. He did not even laugh and had just continued with what he was originally there for. Did he laugh without realizing? In fact, from the beginning to the end, he had remained expressionless. He had been annoyed by the confrontation that was happening but had remained expressionless. That guy didn't dare provoke the others. Did that give him the right to treat Lin Feng as a punching bag? Obviously. Fear the strong and bully the weak, thought Lin Feng with disdain. He was scared of Qin Chen and couldn't continue to bully him, so he had come to bully Lin Feng. But Lin Feng wasn't in the mood to deal with this special kind of childishness. He had chosen his agility technique and martial skills and was satisfied with them. It wasn't necessary for him to stay in the pavilion anymore, so he decided to go downstairs. Lin Feng started walking in the direction of the exit. "Stop! You worthless ordinary disciple! How dare you ignore me," said Li Lin, looking cruel. He had now run in front of Lin Feng to prevent him from leaving. Lin Feng smiled coldly. That guy obviously just wanted to show off in front of the others as he had just lost face. "Worthless ordinary disciple. It looks like you're the one who just got humiliated by an ordinary disciple." Lin Feng had said that in a joking tone. It clearly showed that Li Lin really had no sense of shame. "You want to die?" "Indeed, you're right," said Lin Feng coldly before adding, "Li Lin, is that your name? I don't have time to waste on you. Let's meet at the Stormy Gorge in the life and death arena before the elite disciple exam." When Lin Feng said these words, everybody around laughed again. Lin Feng was surprisingly challenging Li Lin as well, but that time with their life at stake. Could Li Lin reject the challenge after being humiliated to such an extent? Interesting, murmured some of the disciples watching from the sidelines. Li Lin looked perplexed. He didn't know what to think about what had just happened. Lin Feng had surprisingly challenged him to a fight to the death, knowing full well that elite disciples could kill ordinary disciples in the gorge. Would he be strong enough? All right, I'll wait for you there, Li Lin said. Li Lin was caught between a rock and a hard place. Chen Chen knew that too. If he had been scared of an ordinary disciple again, he would have had to hide himself forever from all other disciples in the sect. He couldn't afford to lose face again. Li Lin turned around and immediately left. Lin Feng smiled inside. He didn't look at his opponent. If he wasn't able to defeat the weakest elite disciple of the sect, it would mean he hasn't made any progress and has actually stepped backwards on the path of cultivation. He had already battled an elite disciple when he was only at the 8th chi layer. Hee, what's your name? To be able to come to this floor, it means that you've already broken through to the Ling Chi layer. How come I've never seen you before? Chen Chen asked. Chen Chen was ranked first from all the ordinary disciples. He knew all of the strongest ordinary disciples by name and had measured their strength against his own. He also knew who had broken through to the Ling Chi layer within the sect and how many ordinary disciples had broken through. He was getting prepared to join the elite disciple exam of the Yunhai sect and hoped to become an elite disciple. He made sure to know about everyone who he would be competing against. But Chen Chen had never seen Lin Feng. Lin Feng. I'm not popular, so it's normal that you've never seen me, replied Lin Feng while smiling in a friendly way. Lin Feng, you mean the rumored piece of trash? Chen Chen was stunned. He had never seen him, but he had already heard Lin Feng's name many times. Ha, it seems like one shouldn't believe rumors. How could a piece of trash have broken through to the Ling Chi layer, said Chen Chen while smiling and shaking his head. Then, he added, but even though we are both fellow ordinary disciples, there is still a big gap between you and me. Actually, there's a gigantic gap between you and me, there is nothing comparable. Soon I will become an elite disciple, we are not the same. Lin Feng was a bit surprised. Lin Feng understood what Chen Chen meant. He was referring to the fact that Lin Feng had said to Li Lin that he had been humiliated by another ordinary disciple. In Chen Chen's eyes, Lin Feng's sentence meant that he was saying that they were on the same level. Chen Chen thought that they had nothing in common. He was of course the strongest and Lin Feng was not strong enough to be his equal. It seems like you are very self-confident, replied Lin Feng, not losing his temper and still smiling in a friendly way. Indeed, at least when I am amongst ordinary disciples. I am the number 1 ranked ordinary disciple, replied Chen Chen. Alright, I see. It is said that ordinary disciples need an oil lamp when they are on the first floor and then when it goes off, they must leave. You are indeed very strong, but do you dare exceed that amount of time? Said Lin Feng while laughing. You don't need to flatter me. Indeed, all of the ordinary disciples need that oil lamp on the first floor. However, I am an exception. Because of my strength, I am not bound by the rules. Who would dare say otherwise? Said Chen Chen, mocking that the rules were only meant for the weak. Is that so? Lin Feng was smiling and seemed to be very interested. Well, actually, I also can stay as long as I wish on the first floor, but I try to follow the sect rules. You are the first ranked ordinary disciple, you are so strong. It's no problem for me to stay here as long as I wish, so of course it would be even less of a problem for you, right? Are you joking? You plan to stay longer than the time allocated by the oil lamp, said Chen Chen with a cold smile filled with disdain. Can you not see with your own eyes? Said Lin Feng with a meaningful smile on his face. He then stopped paying attention to Chen Chen. He then started looking at another skill. He didn't intend to practice it, but looking and learning was a wise thing to do. That guy must be crazy. Continuing to stay on the floor, all the elite disciples on the first floor looked at him with interest. They all started to pay attention to the scene that appeared before them. They wanted to see how long he was going to stay. Humph. Chen Chen groaned. Lin Feng had arrived before him, so he wasn't in a hurry. Lin Feng's oil lamp would burn out before his, and the lie would be exposed. The time for half a lamp to burn had already passed. Chen Chen was looking at a skill. He was frowning, he didn't have much time left on his lamp. He looked at Lin Feng and saw that, as before, he was leaning against the bookshelf looking sluggish and still looking at a skill book. He looked like he was absolutely unaware of the time that was passing. He didn't even pay attention to it. How long can you keep playing your little game? Chen Chen wasn't even in the mood to look at skills anymore. He was soon going to be an elite disciple anyway, he would be able to spend as much as he wished on the first floor and could look at as many skills as he wanted. He was watching Lin Feng and waiting for him to make a fool of himself. But Chen Chen was disappointed. Some time passed again and Lin Feng didn't seem to be reacting at all. It seemed like he had completely lost the notion of time. He just continued to read the skills leisurely. "Are you not leaving yet?" asked Chen Chen, unable to remain calm. He had almost no time left on his oil lamp. If he didn't leave, he would be severely punished by the sect for breaking the rules. "I'm not worried, why are you worried? You are the top-ranked ordinary disciple of the Yunhai sect. You are a genius," Lin Feng said in an indifferent tone, but everybody understood that he was making fun of Chen Chen. Chen Chen suddenly became furious and said, "You want to die? I'm not staying here with you. When you come out, I hope you can explain everything to me." After threatening Lin Feng, Chen Chen turned around and left the Xingchen pavilion. Top-ranked ordinary disciple. He is just a fool, nothing more, thought Lin Feng while sneering at him, which made Chen Chen, who was looking at him, even more furious, and killing intent had appeared in his eyes. Chen Chen actually hadn't left the pavilion. He wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he was waiting at the entrance door. Chen Chen actually hadn't left the pavilion. He wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he was waiting at the entrance door. You slightly exceeded the time limit. Next time, please pay attention, said Protector Bei while looking at Chen Chen and shaking his head. I slightly exceeded the time limit, but there's another guy who's been in there for ages, way over the time limit. I want to see what will happen to him, thought Chen Chen, waiting for Lin Feng to come down. Lin Feng didn't make Chen Chen wait for too long. A short time after, he also came down looking relaxed as if there was no problem at all. Protector Bei, here are the skills and agility technique that I chose, said Lin Feng while glancing at Chen Chen. Lin Feng handed skill and agility technique books over to the Protector Bei while smiling in a friendly way. Purity technique. It will help you consolidate your agility basics. It is definitely worth learning, said Protector Bei while looking at the agility technique and skills which Lin Feng had chosen. He was nodding with agreement. He then added, 8 Strikes of Desolation is at the bottom of the Xian level skills, yet, it is an extremely powerful skill. It is hard to learn and practice, but considering your abilities, it should not be too much of a problem. Concerning the Sword of Nirvana, which is a triple strike attack, everybody can learn it, but only a real genius can master it to perfection. People who manage to master it to perfection are really rare. You will have to make great efforts to achieve such a mastery of this skill. Protector Bei was still looking at the agility technique and skills that Lin Feng had chosen and continued to give his opinion. If someday by any chance, you manage to carry out these 3 hits using the Sword of Nirvana at full strength, then don't learn another skill which is at the bottom of the Xian level or even an average Xian level. Directly move on and learn a high Xian level skill. However, if you manage to master the skill, you will not have a problem even if it collides with a high-level Xian skill. Lin Feng was smiling when he heard what the old man was telling him. The gap between the different sub-levels of the Xian level was colossal, but if Lin Feng managed to master that skill, he would still be able to carry out amazingly strong attacks which could match a high-level Xian skill. At the side of the pavilion, Protector Bei and Lin Feng were talking and laughing cheerfully. The more they talked, the uglier and angrier Qin Chen's face looked. It looked like Lin Feng and Protector Bei were actually friends. No wonder Lin Feng took such liberties. He was on the first floor for a long time, more than that allocated within an oil lamp, said Qin Chen, interrupting them in the middle of their conversation, which made Protector Bei smile. He then turned his head and looked at Qin Chen. I know, said Protector Bei, calm and unperturbed. Since you know that he violated the rules of the sect, shouldn't he be severely punished? Qin Chen hadn't expected Protector Bei to admit it in such a straightforward way while looking like he was feeling completely at ease. He was feeling even more furious. Protector Bei looked at Qin Chen with a strict look. He shook his head and then said, I've been here for many, many years. No matter who, elite disciples or even core disciples, have to go through me when they want to enter the Xingqian Pavilion. What do you think? Are you implying that you are trying to teach me, with my many years of experience, how to do my job? Protector Bei was an extraordinary person. The patriarch of the Yunhai sect, Nan Gongling, showed a lot of respect to him when he saw him. In his eyes, common ordinary disciples were tiny individuals with no power, nothing more. Even if it was the top-ranking ordinary disciples, it was still a tiny individual with no power, a nobody who was not worth his time. It would even be a struggle for elite disciples to be considered less than a tiny insignificant power in front of this protector. Lin Feng was an exception. The first time he had met Lin Feng, he had had an extremely good first impression. He immediately had the impression that Lin Feng was polite and wise beyond his years. Later, he had also found out that Lin Feng was extremely gifted, especially when he had made the 8 drums beat. Therefore, he held Lin Feng in the highest of esteem. What did Qin Chen think? How could he allow himself to interrogate the old man like he had done? How could Protector Bei treat him with esteem? When Qin Chen heard Protector Bei's words, his face started looking demonic. He then said in an extremely cold way, your only job is just to guard the Xingqian Pavilion. You dare not apply the rules of the sect. That is a very serious crime against the sect, how dare you? Lin Feng was speechless and shocked by Qin Chen's words. No wonder he was such an imbecile when it came to cultivation and relied on his spirit to achieve minor results. That guy didn't have the least bit of wisdom in his heart. What did that guy think he was doing when threatening Protector Bei and accusing him of having committed a serious crime? The top-ranked ordinary disciple, that guy was living in a dream. He was so used to thinking he was a valuable and noteworthy talent that he had forgotten his place. Protector Bei looked at Qin Chen in a way which clearly showed how ridiculous he thought Qin Chen was. The old man had worked there for a great many years and had never experienced such a thing. He also never got angry, and then at that moment, an ordinary disciple had dared come to him and interrogate him and then tell him that he had committed a crime. Protector Bei was shaking his head. He started opening his mouth but looked like he was still thinking about what to say when his facial expression suddenly changed and shouted, "Get lost." After saying these 2 words, an insane strength burst out and crashed onto Qin Chen's body. At that moment, Protector Bei's eyes were filled with a sharp killing light. His body was unleashing an extremely strong qi. Qin Chen had just felt the extremely strong power against his body and had ended up kneeling down on the ground shaking from head to toe. Qin Chen wasn't the only one who was shaking from head to toe with fear. People inside the Xingqian Pavilion had also been shocked by the loud shout. Some of them had come to see what was happening and saw the protector's body surrounded by such a strong and powerful qi. They all kept quiet with fear. As it turned out, that old man who looked sluggish was actually as strong or even stronger than the elders within the sect and looked like a powerful deity to the disciples. The old man's strength was genuinely powerful without question. It was well known that when breaking through to the Ling Qi layer from the Qi layer, cultivators acquired a mysterious and profound strength. When breaking through to the Xian Qi layer from the Ling Qi layer, it was said that the cultivator's three energies, the Qi, the Shen, and the Jing, fused together, which enabled the cultivator to acquire a genuinely pure and immense power. The Qi inside the body became genuinely pure like the Qi of heaven and earth. A tiny bit of that pure power contained an extremely condensed Qi, and when it was used in an attack, it could destroy an entire mountain. Protector Bei's shout had actually released that genuinely pure power. The power that had crashed onto Qin Chen's body wasn't immensely strong because Protector Bei had controlled his power perfectly, but it had revealed the fact that he was an extremely strong cultivator who had broken through to the Xian Qi layer. Xian Qi layer, that was an incomparably strong cultivation level. He could easily become an elder in the Yunhai sect. I will be taking my leave, said Qin Chen while pale but still looking at Lin Feng with an evil look, and added, piece of trash, relying on other people's strength. If you join the elite exam, at that moment, I will take good care of you. When saying those words, Qin Chen turned around and left with his head held high. Lin Feng shook his head while looking at Qin Chen. Even though that guy was the top-ranked ordinary disciple, he was extremely arrogant and thought he was better than others. He didn't know anything else but the small place in which he lived and thought he had seen and knew everything. He really did not understand how large the world was and did not know that hidden dragons lay everywhere. Protector Bei's strength was immense. He wouldn't even spare a glance at a cultivator like Chen Chen who was ranked at the top of ordinary disciple. Why would he go out of his way to do favors for Lin Feng? If Chen Chen had even the slightest wisdom, then he would come to the conclusion that he had met someone he could not offend. Besides, everything that had happened was all part of Chen Chen attempting to show his dominance over Lin Feng. By attempting to show off, he had humiliated himself several times. It's been a long time since I had to do something like this. I am much too old for things such as this, thought Protector Bei. Then he said, Xue, when I leave, you'll be in charge of the Xingqian Pavilion. After he finished talking, his body started shaking and wings of a crane appeared. Then, he flew high up in the air and disappeared. The crowd was stupefied. They had seen how he had suddenly vanished into the horizon. What a terrifying power! He could even fly. What kind of power was this old man hiding? That old man could travel over 10 kilometers in the blink of an eye. That required an extremely profound power. The crowd had the feeling they were in a dream. The sluggish-looking old man who guarded the Xingqian Pavilion had suddenly shown his real power. At that moment, they hated themselves for not noticing and never asking the old man for advice. They had all ignored him. They had eyes but did not recognize Mount Tai. Lin Feng was stupefied as well. His heart was pounding in amazement. Protector Bei was 1,000,000 times stronger than he was. Much stronger than he had originally thought. A middle-aged man entered the Xingqian Pavilion. That was the one Protector Bei had called before leaving, Xue. At that moment, on the highest mountain on the Yunhai sect, in the room of a temple, a gigantic qi was filling the atmosphere. Many people had gathered in that room and it looked like they were debating about something. Fei, I will consider this with great attention. You should stop worrying, said the patriarch of the Yunhai sect, Nan Gongling, while smiling. He was speaking to Lu Fei who was sitting next to him. Behind Lu Fei were a multitude of people wearing the same attire. They were all wearing noble red armor. They were precisely the people Lin Feng had seen at the foot of the mountain. They were the troops who were riding Qi Shui armored horses. When she heard Nan Gongling's answer, Lu Fei's beautiful eyebrows frowned. Nan Gongling hadn't replied happily. In fact, it could be seen that he was not happy in the slightest. But Lu Fei could understand him. Letting some of the best disciples of the Yunhai sect leave with her was a difficult decision. Each of the Yunhai sect disciples would go on to have children who represented a great future for the sect. How could Nan Gongling abandon any of them easily? Uncle Nan Gongling, you know that my father is not a selfish person. It is fate and it is for the benefit of the Xue country. He will definitely let them come back to the Yunhai sect. He will treat them well. At that moment, they will all be able to assume a high status and will become pillars of the sect. Lu Fei continued her argumentation. Your father and I practiced cultivation together, grew up together. We love each other like brothers. If he stayed in the Yunhai sect, he could have become the patriarch of the sect. How could I, Nan Gongling, not know what kind of man he is? The thing is that now, as the patriarch of the Yunhai sect, everything I do, I must do it considering what is good and bad for the sect first. I cannot selfishly decide things myself. Nan Gongling didn't elaborate more at that moment. He remembered all the things he and Liu Cang Lan used to do together without thinking of the consequences of their actions. They were two geniuses of the Yunhai sect. But these days, as the patriarch of the sect, he couldn't act irresponsibly anymore. When Lu Fei heard Nan Gongling's speech, she heaved a sigh. Actually, she could understand the difficult position in which Nan Gongling found himself. Yet, she was concerned about her father who also had to bear huge responsibilities. She was really trying her best to help him by any means possible. When Lu Fei heard Nan Gongling's speech, she heaved a sigh. Actually, she could understand the difficult position in which Nan Gongling found himself. Yet, she was concerned about her father who also had to bear huge responsibilities. She was really trying her best to help him by any means possible. Patriarch, Nan Gongling, building the holy courtyard of Xue is an order of His Majesty. Could you refuse to obey His Majesty's orders? Said a young man who was next to Lu Fei while staring at Nan Gongling. When did I say that I wanted to disobey His Majesty's orders? Nan Gongling replied coldly while glancing at the young man. He then said, building the holy courtyard of Xue is a project which I support wholeheartedly. I have no choice but to let a few outstanding disciples go and practice there. He paused for a moment and then continued in a cold tone, besides, since when did you start to think it was good manners to poke your nose into other people's affairs and make criticisms? A little prince like you. What do you intend to do? Do you want me to call your father, Duan Tianlang, and have him teach you some manners? In the continent of the 9 clouds, elders had to be respected. Nobles also had to be respected, which was especially true of those with high status as they were extremely strong. These days, the Duan clan had become the imperial clan because they were extremely strong. The Duan clan had become the strongest clan in the entire Xue country. It wasn't just a matter of how much territory was controlled, it was a fact that they were the strongest. However, the Duan clan still had to humble themselves to the sects and act politely when speaking with them. Nan Gongling wasn't going to submit himself to a little prince of the Duan clan. It did not matter to him how strong the Duan clan was, his sect was not something that could be looked down upon by anyone. You. Nan Gongling, I will tell my father about this, said the young man coldly while giving a glare filled with evil intentions. Tell him whatever you like, replied Nan Gongling while looking relaxed and not surprised. I heard that little Fei came back. At that moment, a voice came from outside of the room in the temple. It was Protector Bei who had just arrived while striding forward with head high. Grandfather Bei. When Lu Fei saw Protector Bei, she stood up. Protector Bei was actually her father's master. Little Fei, how's your father doing? Protector Bei was looking at Lu Fei with affectionate eyes. The great elders and protectors of the sect rarely had direct disciples. When they did, they developed deep and strong ties with them which would last a lifetime. He's still in Duanren City, said Lu Fei making a wry smile. Phew, sighed Protector Bei shaking his head and making a wry smile as well. Little Fei, what brings you here? If you are looking for disciples, then I have an amazing person in mind. You will definitely be happy. One person, said Lu Fei making a wry smile again. Didn't your father leave the sect alone in the past? You don't need too many people. It's useless to take too many, said Protector Bei while shaking his head. Grandfather, who are you talking about? Lu Fei's eyes had a glimmer of hope. When she heard the old man, she had the feeling he was talking about somebody extremely important. Could it be? You will know when the right moment comes. Make those guys leave first. After the elite disciple exam of the Yunhai sect, I will personally accompany the person to the imperial city, said Protector Bei while looking at the crowd of troops behind Lu Fei. All right, said Lu Fei while nodding. In the mountains where he had first met Lu Fei, Lin Feng was sitting in a cave and cultivating. The qi of heaven and earth looked like a cocoon which was surrounding him as he continued to cultivate. Lin Feng's body was wrapped up in the cocoon-like qi. That white-colored qi looked like an extremely dense fog which had almost become solid. At that moment, a terrifying attractive force emerged out of the deepest parts of Lin Feng's body which enabled the qi of heaven and earth that surrounding his body to penetrate into his dantian. Inside Lin Feng's body, a powerful milky white qi was circulating and looked as if it was boiling. The strong qi which circulated in and out of Lin Feng's body was extremely pure. After a long time, the qi of heaven and earth was still uninterruptedly revolving around Lin Feng's body. At that moment, Lin Feng stopped cultivating. He opened his eyes and had a big smile on his face. This purity technique has such strange effects on the body, but it definitely helped consolidate my cultivation basics. Now, I am much stronger than before, I can utilize my power much better than before. I can control my breathing much better than before as well. Lin Feng thought that thanks to his increased breathing abilities, he would be able to endlessly fight. A continuous explosive strength required a great power, and of course every fight required control over one's breathing. Lin Feng stood up, looked at a wall at the entrance of the cave, then thrust his palm forward into the air and whispered, 8 strikes of desolation. Accompanying his words, a strong and explosive attack crashed into the wall in front of him. Boom! 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 The entire cave was vibrating. 7 clear and distinct marks could be seen on the wall which Lin Feng had taken as a target. As expected, 8 strikes of desolation is an extremely strong attack. Lin Feng was smiling. 8 strikes of desolation was one of the lowest skills of the Xian level. It could have up to 8 strikes. If a cultivator managed to achieve 5 strikes, that was already extremely strong and proved that he had great talent. If he could manage to go up to 6 strikes, he was definitely a rare talent, but achieving 7 strikes could only be done by a real genius. Lin Feng wanted to achieve 8 strikes. Achieving 8 strikes would fill the entire atmosphere with power. However, achieving the 8th strike was extremely difficult and only real geniuses could achieve it. It usually required a lot of battle experience to fully comprehend the skill and master it to perfection. Xian-level skills were not easy to practice, and the higher the level and strength, the more difficult they became. However, as far as Lin Feng was concerned, he could see no problem with practicing. When releasing his dark spirit, it gave him the amazing ability of increased comprehension and understanding. After one day, he had been able to master 7 strikes. He just had to practice a bit more and he would be able to master the 8 strikes of desolation skill to perfection and achieve all 8 strikes when using the skill. But Lin Feng wasn't satisfied at that moment. Elite disciples had nothing in common with ordinary disciples, and Lin Feng wanted to climb above all others. During the elite disciple exam of the Yunhai sect, there could be a real genius within the disciples. Lin Feng didn't know how it was going to be, but the stronger his competition was the better. Sword of Nirvana would greatly improve his strength in a very short time as well. The Sword of Nirvana skill was actually a sword skill with 3 strikes which would grow in strength with the higher mastery of the sword. 1 strike could mean death, 3 strikes would mean certain death. A deadly sword. A fatal sword. A lonely sword. It could annihilate everything that stood in its way, so it had annihilated everything in its path. It had nothing left that was its equal and was therefore lonely. While reading the Sword of Nirvana skill book, Lin Feng was lost in thought. He looked at the text and the stances while gradually absorbing all of the knowledge. Lin Feng could rapidly understand everything. Lin Feng had started to release his spirit. Lin Feng's world became a world filled with darkness again. The earth, the sky, not a single color or light could be seen. There was only darkness surrounding everything. Lin Feng was calm and unperturbed in that world of darkness, nothing could disturb him and he was extremely calm. Lin Feng closed his eyes and the image of a person appeared in his brain. That person looked like a holy man and didn't stop wielding his long sword. One strike, another strike, repeating the same movement over and over again, he was practicing the sword of Nirvana. The deadly sword. After a long time, Lin Feng opened his eyes. The twinkling sword lacerating the air disappeared. One step, one strike, the deadly sword. Boom! The entire cave was shaking and trembling. The sword had left a large scar in the wall of the cave. The cave was shaking and trembling more and more, the rocks had been crushed into nothing but dust. Lin Feng was stupefied. Lin Feng had quickly retreated from the cave and not long after, the cave collapsed on itself with a violent rumble. The first strike was already so deadly. Combined with the 8 strikes of desolation he had completely destroyed the cave. He had only mastered the first strike of the sword of Nirvana and the 7th strike of the 8 strikes of desolation, yet he had already collapsed a cave. These were indeed powerful skills. Lin Feng recalled his spirit back into his body. He was very excited. Xian level skills were definitely extremely powerful, as expected. Was the power of all his skills going to be so incredible? What Lin Feng didn't know was that the first strike was already devastating because he also knew how to control forces. He had unconsciously controlled the sword force at a very advanced level and combined it with his strike. That deadly sword required a perfect fusion of his sword chi, mastery of the skill and sword force. These 3 elements had to be in a perfect symbiotic fusion. Ling Feng's ability to comprehend and use the sword force so freely had made things much easier for him. That is why it wasn't that difficult for him to practice the skill. If it had been someone else, it would have been much more difficult, maybe even impossible to learn the skill in such a short period. Who? Lin Feng had come out from the cave, turned around and looked around him at the mountains where the sun rays shone through. He could see someone walking in the distance. When he recognized the person, Lin Feng felt a sudden urge to take revenge which he suppressed. Lu Fei. Lin Feng was surprised. He didn't understand what she was doing there. She had had the opportunity to attack him before and she hadn't seized it. Why? Bastard, you took control over my territory. Today, you and me are enemies. You are the only one who has humiliated me to such an extent. Lu Fei was staring at Lin Feng with a deep and bitter hatred for him. Since she was a child, her father had taught her to stand alone and be independent. She had always been like that. She was more of a tomboy and didn't really act like a girl in the slightest. Besides, she had gone through a lot of hardships which made her even more proud and ambitious. But Lu Fei hadn't expected Lin Feng to be so shameless. He was a voyeur and had pounced naked onto her only to be beaten back, and then when they next fought he had dared to say he wasn't interested in her anymore only because he had made great progress with his cultivation. Then, he had dared to steal her precious and beloved territory. How could she not be angry? Now, I have broken through to the Ling Qi layer, we will see if you still dare act so insolent towards me. Lu Fei thought tyrannically. I have already defeated you 3 times. Apologize to me and I might show mercy and let you off. Lu Fei said in an ice-cold tone. Defeated 3 times? Show mercy. Lin Feng laughed, shook his head and said, just leave already before it becomes too embarrassing for you to stay. Lu Fei and Lin Feng had already met a few times. Lin Feng knew how proud and arrogant that girl was, so she would not accept others' help and would use her own power. Therefore, when Yu Hao, an elite disciple, wanted to help her to kill Lin Feng, she refused even though she just had nod once and Yu Hao would kill Lin Feng. She still didn't do it. Then, at the foot of the mountain, with these cavaliers on Xue armored horses, Lu Fei had said in a cold voice that they were fellow disciples within the sect. She didn't try to get her revenge with numbers. Therefore, even though Lin Feng thought that that girl was quite detestable, he didn't think that she was evil or malicious. Maybe during the first time Lin Feng had come to her place, she had really believed that he was a pervert and that it was no accident at all. Embarrassing? Lu Fei was looking at Lin Feng looking horribly self-confident now she had a breakthrough. You should go home. My father gave me a silver xian bao. If you do not leave quickly then I will let you taste its arrows. Lu Fei grabbed the silver bao she was carrying on her back. It diffused a dazzling light and the sun was reflecting from every inch of the bao. She put an arrow into the bao, made a small step and bent down. Her movements looked smooth and agile. Her beautiful body, her clothes, and her movements were in perfect harmony. She looked very attractive, but that beauty was hiding her dangerous power. Whoosh! The sound of a bowstring vibrating could be heard as the arrow shot through the air at incredible speed. Its dazzling light made it look like it was on fire. It was heading directly towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng was stupefied. The arrow was approaching so quickly that escaping seemed impossible. He quickly moved from the path of the arrow and struck his sword against the incoming arrow. The arrow flew past Lin Feng and crashed into the side of a cave which was behind him. Boom! Behind Lin Feng, rocks were falling from the cave and half of the rock face had been destroyed. It had been crushed by Lu Fei's arrow. That attack was quite violent and contained a great deal of power. Huh! Lin Feng was surprised. He could feel the power from her Ling Qi layer. So Lu Fei had broken through to the Ling Qi layer, no wonder that she wanted to fight with him again. Lu Fei was very young and had yet already broken through to the Ling Qi layer. She was a really outstanding talent. She was about as strong as Lin Qian and Na Lan Feng. Considering these things her arrogance would be inevitable, however she was not as vicious and petty as Lin Qian and did not look down on others like Na Lan Feng. Also her status was much higher than that of Lin Qian or Na Lan Feng. One could notice it from the moment she was seen with the cavalry troop which contained troops much stronger than the ones he had slaughtered during the night before the annual tournament. As expected, sword skills are indeed very powerful. Her arrows were much quicker than before. She had also become much stronger as well. Her arrows could even exceed the speed of sound as they ripped through the air. The whistling sound of the arrow could be heard only after the arrow had reached its target, or maybe the sound would be heard after the arrow had already pierced its opponent. Killing people with these arrows would be extremely easy for her. Bow and arrow techniques were terrifying and cultivators who used them were extremely respected. Their attacks were fast and precise while carrying extremely powerful destructive force. Unfortunately for her, Lu Fei's strength was still not extremely developed. It was incomparable with that of some extremely advanced cultivators who used bows and arrows. You're lucky, Lu Fei said to Lin Feng while looking at him. She put another arrow in the bow and said, I'll give you another chance. No need. I am not guilty of anything. I don't need to apologize or to beg you, Lin Feng said while shaking his head. He started walking towards Lu Fei. You're bringing about your own destruction, shouted Lu Fei furiously. An arrow then pierced through the air. 8 strikes of desolation. Lin Feng raised his hand and thrust out 3 strikes which collided with the arrow, and with each strike it gradually lost strength until it eventually fell helpless onto the ground. 8 strikes of desolation, Xian level skill, Ling Qi layer, Lu Fei thought while shivering in fear. When she saw that Lin Feng knew the skill 8 strikes of desolation, she understood that Lin Feng had also broken through to the Ling Qi layer. No wonder he had remained so insolent. She had realized her mistake. She immediately turned around and started running at an incredible speed in the opposite direction. Lin Feng was baffled and had no idea what she was doing. Then, he saw Lu Fei bending over. Her body had a perfect arch shape. That beauty was still hiding her killing intent, and she would not let go of her revenge so easily. Whoosh! An arrow shot through the air with a whistling sound, but this time it was even faster and stronger than a moment ago. Lin Feng wasn't scared. He was as confident as before. He started his 8 strikes of desolation attack again. This time, he used 4 strikes. Damn, how many strikes can that guy do using 8 strikes of desolation? Lu Fei whispered as she swore at Lin Feng in her heart. She suddenly released her spirit. A beautiful and resplendent golden arrow spirit appeared. It looked very different from the last time. This time, there were 3 arrows behind her back. Her spirit was emitting such a strong qi that it made Lin Feng shake. Besides, Lu Fei's spirit had been awakened as expected. Lu Fei's arrow spirit flew up in the air, and following it, Lu Fei also jumped in the air. High up in the air, the arrows were accurately aiming at Lin Feng. At the same time, Lu Fei was holding her silver bow and had loaded it with 3 arrows as well. 3 cruel and deadly arrows. Meteor fall. Lu Fei looked serene and calm. Her body floated high up in the air as 6 arrows were shot and pierced through the air. The arrow spirit definitely had great advantages. Not only was it able to automatically aim at somebody, but it was also able to aim at a specific body part. At that moment, Lin Feng had the feeling that the arrow spirit was aiming at his soul, which made him feel like his very being was being suppressed by the arrows. These arrows are so powerful. Lin Feng was feeling gloomy, and immediately he started his 8 strikes of desolation attack using both hands. 14 strikes had blotted out the sky and covered up the earth. Moving straight towards the incoming arrows. Boom, boom, boom. Explosion sounds filled the air, and an extremely strong wind blew onto Lin Feng's disciple robes. After these apocalyptic attacks vanished, Lu Fei appeared again in a cloud of dust. She was crouching down and was breathing heavily. How can he be this strong? Lu Fei was looking at Lin Feng and wondering how she would get her revenge. It seemed impossible. She was completely astonished. After she broke through to the Ling Qi layer, her father himself had assisted her in her training. She had been practicing every day with no rest. She had greatly increased her breathing abilities and her combat skills. She had greatly increased her strength, and her attacks now contained explosive power within each arrow. Thanks to her spirit, she was now even able to shoot 6 arrows at the same time. She was extremely talented as a disciple of the first Ling Qi layer, and not many people could defeat her, but Lin Feng was still able to block all of her attacks. She had lost once again and was unable to put up resistance. He was a genius. He could use up to 7 strikes of the 8 strikes of desolation skill and up to 14 using both hands. He had managed to master it with both hands to such a level. Such a thing was impossible. Was he really only at the first Ling Qi layer? How could his attacks be that horrifyingly powerful? When Lu Fei saw that Lin Feng was moving nearer and nearer with a weird smile on his face, she could feel a shiver run down her spine, and while remaining vigilant she asked him, "What are you planning to do?" Lin Feng said nothing and just hummed as if he was thinking of what he would do. What kind of girl was she? She often used that delicate, charming and tender expression to fool others. She also looked very cute, but he knew that deep down she was violent. If Lin Feng didn't have a strong willpower and determination, he could have ended up falling for her too. Lin Feng, whose expression was barely discernible, looked at Lu Fei with an evil smile on his face and asked, "What do you think that I am going to do?" Lu Fei had the blood rush from her face and she looked incredibly pale. She took an arrow from her back, and started pressing it against her own throat. She was extremely determined. Lin Feng was joking on purpose and at that moment was astonished. He wouldn't have thought that his joke would have such repercussions. He couldn't help but be completely shocked. "If I wanted to do anything to you, do you think I would have let you off last time?" Lin Feng had no choice but to speak. Could it be that he really looked and sounded like a pervert? Lin Feng's words suddenly relieved Lu Fei. She also put down the arrow that she was holding. "If you really want this place, then I will leave it to you." From this point forward we won't need to meet anymore, it's too troublesome with you. You continue to shock me. Lin Feng explained while walking towards Lu Fei. When he arrived next to her, he stopped. Lin Feng bent over and looked at Lu Fei. He slowly sighed, amazed by the beautiful skin of the girls in that world. Lin Feng, who was above Lu Fei, looked closely and attentively at her delicate face. He looked startled. Then he smiled and whispered, I have only just realized now that you are pretty cute after all. When he finished talking, Lin Feng left. Lu Fei was astonished for a while, but she soon came to her senses. Ah, that bastard. Lin Feng sensed the stones of the mountains around him were shaking and the sound of Lu Fei's voice was echoing through the atmosphere into his ears. There was no need to react that way. Holding a grudge against somebody like this wasn't a pleasant thing after all. It was even scary to a certain extent. I guess this settles things between us. Lin Feng had a resplendent and brilliant smile on his face. He looked like a happy and well-rounded young man. Always taking things too seriously or always being too worried was pointless. Sometimes it felt good to relax and not worry. Lin Feng had left the mountains where he had just finally removed a thorn from his side. He saw some silhouettes on the horizon running at full speed, which created a dust storm behind them. Lin Feng had left the mountains where he had just finally removed a thorn from his side. He saw some silhouettes on the horizon running at full speed, which created a dust storm behind them. Hey, what's going on? Asked a disciple who didn't understand what was going. You still don't know? There are too many ferocious beasts in the Black Wind Mountain. It looks like oceans of ferocious beasts have emerged. A countless number of ferocious beasts have gone into a frenzy. All the Yunhai sect disciples are going there now to stop the disturbance. A flood of ferocious beasts, replied the other one, looking really excited. They immediately headed towards the crowd at great speed, while heading towards the Black Wind Mountain. The history of the Yunhai sect dated back 1,000 years, but the history of the Black Wind Mountain was even older than that. These floods of ferocious beasts weren't a rare thing, but for the great majority of them, they were weaker beasts. Many disciples were heading there for treasures and for battle experience. This was something which did not occur frequently and could not be missed. A few hundred years before, there was a flood of strong ferocious beasts. The Yunhai sect was almost destroyed by this flood. Ordinary ferocious beasts and Ling-level ferocious beasts were not a problem, they were ordinary and easy to kill, but during the apocalyptic flood from the past, there was a gigantic quantity of Xian-level ferocious beasts which were extremely strong compared to cultivators at the same level. They were incredibly hard to kill, which made them extremely dangerous. They made earthquakes with their movements and killed a multitude of people. The sect was almost completely destroyed. There were also rumors. At that time the leader of the ferocious beasts was a mutant beast which could change its shape, a celestial ferocious beast. Because it had happened such a long time before, the information that people knew about it was limited. However, everybody knew that these floods of ferocious beasts were very dangerous, but that they were also a great opportunity. Cultivators would give their best efforts to obtain as many precious items as they could. Fighting against ferocious beasts would quickly increase the battle experience of the disciples. I wouldn't have thought that the Yunhai sect disciples would go there before the elite disciple exam. Lin Feng thought. He then started walking and decided to head straight to the Black Wind Mountain. Lin Feng didn't walk for a very long time. Lu Fei also came out of the mountains and was also heading to the Black Wind Mountain. On the highest mountain of the Yunhai sect were sitting a group of mysterious people looking down at the surroundings. They were watching Ling Hu Hishan, the top-ranked core disciple of the Yunhai sect. How strong! It looks like this time the number of ferocious beasts is quite large. Ling Hu is extremely strong as expected. He looks like one of the 8 high officials of the country, people thought while looking at Ling Hu Hishan's silhouette. They all knew that the high official, Chu Zhanpeng, had come to the Yunhai sect. They had seen how arrogant he was. It had moved Ling Hu Yishan's heart a great deal, and he had now placed orders to control who came in and out of the Yunhai sect. The Black Wind Mountain looked like an apocalyptic battlefield. Sect elders and disciples were moving together towards the Black Wind Mountain. The entrance of the Black Wind Mountain was surrounded by the strongest cultivators within the sect. The ferocious beasts were roaring loudly at the base of mountain. There were also many disciples killing ferocious beasts on the outskirts. It was a real bloodbath. At that moment, Elder Mo Xia was standing on a huge monolith, his long sleeves were fluttering in the air. Elder Mo Xia, these disciples are quite strong. It looks like the ordinary disciples are all capable of advancing really quickly within the sect, said an ordinary elder standing next to Mo Xia. Ha, this is actually so easy for us to handle. There is no danger that we fear on this mountain. This is just a warm-up before the elite disciple exam. It's quite fun actually. Mo Xia laughed when saying this. He sounded like there was absolutely no ferocious beast flood where disciples were fighting to the death. Elder Mo Xia, Elder Mo Xia. At that moment, more and more people were gathering. They all came to Mo Xia and were bowing in front of him. They were extremely polite. At that moment, a silhouette passed by Mo Xia at full speed towards a ferocious beast. Mo Xia looked pale as if he had seen a ghost. There was a loud thunderous roar and suddenly a level 8 ferocious beast died on the spot. The thunderous roars came from Lin Feng's sword. They were making the entire atmosphere vibrate heavily. He threw himself at wild enraged rhinoceros and smashed its head, then the beast collapsed and died. Lin Feng used his sword to remove the precious core and other valuable items while placing them in his bag. These precious items were extremely expensive and valuable for him. He would be able to exchange them within the sect for useful tools which would increase his strength and increase his cultivation. Mo Xia, who was still standing still on the huge monolith, couldn't help but feel like he had a weight placed on his heart when he saw Lin Feng. That was precisely that disciple who had made him lose face in the presence of many other people. He had really humiliated him in front of everyone. He would have never thought that Lin Feng could improve his sword skills to such an extent in such a short amount of time. You have become quicker and stronger, but you, an ordinary disciple, dared to humiliate me. You should just die. Thought Mo Xia full of hatred. He hadn't forgotten that day. The memory of those events were still fresh in his mind. Stop, shouted Mo Xia while looking at Lin Feng. He sounded like a madman and his shout was filled with anger. He had shouted so loud that it surprised Lin Feng. He stopped what he was doing, turned around and saw Mo Xia. Elder, what's wrong? Asked Lin Feng. Bastard, stop killing all the ferocious beasts. You're doing this only so that the others don't get the precious items, you selfish bastard. Good thing that I'm here to pay attention and think about your fellow disciples of the Yunhai sect. Mo Xia was still shouting with anger. There was someone standing next to Lin Feng. He was an elder who followed Mo Xia. He was sent there by Mo Xia as he could easily kill Lin Feng with a flick of his wrist. Elder, I don't see what precious items you are talking about, said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. Last time, Mo Xia had put Lin Feng in an almost fatal position. It was a death trap. He wanted to hand Lin Feng over to Chu Zhanpeng. Lin Feng wouldn't have thought that Mo Xia would still hate him though. Lin Feng had never directly offended him. Mo Xia had been wrong to try and frame Lin Feng. He thought this elder had already learned his lesson. Bastard, how dare you talk to an elder that way, shouted the elder standing next to Lin Feng. He sounded furious. That elder wasn't weak and had relied on Mo Xia to become an elder. Of course, he wasn't going to miss an opportunity to show in front of his benefactor. I'm saying that you stole the precious items, do I need to repeat it once again, said Mo Xia smiling coldly. Lin Feng wasn't doing it on purpose. It was easy to misunderstand though. Mo Xia was once again accusing Lin Feng of made-up crimes and then everybody would attempt to kill Lin Feng on the spot. If Lin Feng died, who would say anything? He was just an ordinary disciple. 2 elders were there as witnesses. 2 elders in charge of enforcing the rules within the sect. There would be nothing strange if they killed Lin Feng. "Little boy, be very careful, will you dare humiliate an elder?" said Mo Xia. He was laughing on the inside. In his head, Lin Feng was already dead. "You really are a shameless elder." Lin Feng cursed loudly. He had first accused Lin Feng of stealing items from the others and then started adding other crimes to the list. Mo Xia was in charge of enforcing the rules in the sect. How could he abuse his power like this? Even if some others didn't agree, they would protect Lin Feng if he was having issues with an elder, and Mo Xia was trying to create a conflict between Lin Feng and the other elder. Lin Feng had no way to defend himself. If an elder said he had committed a crime, then he had committed a crime. "Mo Xia, I know you want to kill me. You don't need to invent false crimes to accuse me. Just admit it honestly, like someone with a backbone." Lin Feng looked at Mo Xia and smiled coldly. He sounded extremely self-confident and arrogant. "Huh?" Mo Xia frowned. Lin Feng dared be that impertinent? "Mo Xia, I am just an ordinary disciple. You are an elder, what are you afraid of? If you want to kill me, then go ahead and try to kill me. I am right here waiting for you." Lin Feng saw that Mo Xia was frowning and continued to talk. He didn't restrain himself at all. He didn't care about Mo Xia and continued to humiliate him. No wonder, Mo Xia remembered that day. He had been extremely scared of the shadow which took hold of him when he attempted to attack Lin Feng. Indeed, that shadow had protected Lin Feng during those events. How could Mo Xia be sure that the shadow wouldn't protect Lin Feng again? Was Lin Feng was not acting this way to make him attack so the shadow would act? He remembered that frightening shadow as it completely dominated his body. Mo Xia couldn't help being terrified at the thought. He was clearly trembling in fear. He looked at Lin Feng with an evil look. Lin Feng looked back while remaining insolent and not scared at all. "He Chong, let's go, help me capture him," said Mo Xia to He Chong who was standing near Lin Feng. He didn't say, kill, only, capture. "All right," replied He Chong. "Asshole," Lin Feng said while glancing at He Chong. The insult had spontaneously burst forth from his mouth. It was completely unexpected by the people watching from the sidelines. "What did you say?" said He Chong, growing extremely furious. An ordinary disciple had suddenly dared insult him in front of the entire crowd. That was ridiculous, absurd, impossible. That was truly outrageous. "Mo Xia doesn't dare to touch me and wants you to attack me, haven't you thought of the consequences?" Lin Feng was smiling coldly while looking at He Chong and then added, "I'm not just insulting you though. The same also applies Mo Xia. He abuses his power as an elder. When you look at Mo Xia trembling in fear, are you sure that you still feel like attacking me? Mo Xia doesn't dare attack me. He wants you to do it, you're a scapegoat and you're even excited to obey his orders. Even if I say you are an asshole, am I wrong with what I say?" Lin Feng's tone was cold but calm. It made He Chong furious. He didn't hesitate and immediately started moving towards Lin Feng. He secretly glanced at Mo Xia and saw Mo Xia was extremely furious as well, but as before, he was not moving towards Lin Feng at all. It was incredibly strange. Mo Xia is extremely strong and influential. Does he want me to act as a scapegoat? He Chong thought. He thought about the conversation Mo Xia and Lin Feng had had. The more he thought about it, the more he thought Lin Feng could be right. Besides, Mo Xia's father was standing behind them, so if something happened then Mo Xia would be helped by his father. However, if something happened to He Chong, who would protect him? At that moment, a large group of Yunhai sect disciples were surrounding them and had seen everything. They couldn't help but be stupefied. An ordinary disciple had only said a few words and had terrified 2 elders of the Yunhai sect. I tell you to hurry up and kill me but you still don't dare, what sort of sect elders are you, said Lin Feng sneering at then he turned around and beheaded a sly python with his sword. His sword was extremely sharp and precise. I tell you to hurry up and kill me but you still don't dare, what sort of sect elders are you, said Lin Feng sneering at then he turned around and beheaded a sly python with his sword. His sword was extremely sharp and precise. Lin Feng had an evil smile on his face which made He Chong even more hesitant to attack. He surprisingly already believed Lin Feng's words and did not want to act rashly. Mo Xie didn't dare take risks either, so both elders were frozen in place, unmoving. The last time he made a move against Lin Feng, the evil shadow had defended him and had scared Mo Xie to death. Even just thinking about the shadow sent chills down his spine. It had been a deep psychological trauma for Mo Xie. The flood of ferocious beasts was getting more and more intense. There were also more and more disciples who were joining in the fights. Each of them looked crueler than the other, rushing into the multitude of ferocious beasts which actually gave the impression they were bloodthirsty beasts themselves. Lu Fei had also arrived. She saw that Lin Feng was in the middle of all these ferocious beasts and that it seemed easy for him to kill them. His sword was bathed in blood and rivers of blood flowed under his feet. Lin Feng wasn't using his full strength, so it was hard to tell he was at the Ling Qi layer. He was using the strength of the 9th Qi layer to kill the incoming ferocious beasts. However, every movement of his sword was precise, powerful, accurate and quick. His swordsmanship was on a whole new level. Lin Feng had complete control when using his sword and every movement was perfection. He was quick, accurate and powerful. People were unable to tell how powerful Lin Feng was, but they knew he must be strong. This damned guy again, Lu Fei insulted Lin Feng in her thoughts. She took her bow and arrow from her back and immediately shot an arrow through the skull of a ferocious beast that Lin Feng was about to kill. Lin Feng turned around and saw Lu Fei's ice-cold eyes glaring at him. He smiled at her in a friendly way and ignored her killing the ferocious beast. He believed their debt had been settled already. Whir, a furious roar spread throughout the atmosphere and echoed through the air. The ground started violently shaking. Everyone had the impression the ground was collapsing under their feet. Everyone's face suddenly became much more serious than before. An extremely powerful ferocious beast is coming. Many people started moving back, scared of the ferocious beast which was heading in their direction. A black fog was filling the air in a distant location and was gradually moving nearer. The crowd could just see the fog moving forward and trees getting split into pieces and blown away. How scary! The crowd was still retreating backwards. That kind of monstrous power must be at least at the Ling level of ferocious beasts. If an ordinary disciple went to try to kill it, then they would certainly die. When Lin Feng noticed that such a powerful ferocious beast was approaching, he started retreating as well. He wasn't confident that he could easily kill such a powerful ferocious beast. Until that moment, he had been killing only low-level ones and had never engaged in battle with a ferocious beast of the Ling level. While Lin Feng kept retreating backwards, a sudden oppressive force crashed onto his body. That oppressive force made his body go completely stiff and started to push him forwards and prevented him from moving back. Animal! Lin Feng shouted furiously, looking at Mo Xie who was behind him. He didn't need to ask himself who was doing this to him, it was obvious that only Elder Mo Xie was able to do that, especially with such strength. He didn't dare attack him, so he just prevented him from retreating away from danger. Mo Xie turned a deaf ear to Lin Feng's insults. He had an evil smile across his face. He had been humiliated by that worthless ordinary disciple a few times, he had completely lost face. But more and more he started to think that he was wrong about the shadow which was supporting Lin Feng. How was that possible that the possessor of that shadow spirit was always with Lin Feng? Besides, he had just looked around carefully and had seen no shadow at all. He had decided that if he was going to act, now would be the best chance. Of course, Mo Xie wasn't absolutely convinced that the shadow wasn't in the area. Therefore, he had only tried to harm Lin Feng using sly and indirect methods. He would have the rampaging beast kill Lin Feng for him. The extremely powerful ferocious beast was moving nearer, and it seemed like there was an earthquake every time it moved. The crowd could only see a black fog filling the air. Around that black fog, there was a large group of extremely strong ferocious wild beasts. Each of them diffused such a strong qi that the disciples who saw had felt their hearts jumping from their chests. He's dead. Elder Mo Xia willingly put him in such a situation. He's definitely screwed. Everybody was running back and saw that Lin Feng was alone, unable to move backwards in retreat. Mo Xia was also standing away from the crowd and had firmly placed himself behind Lin Feng. The crowd had clearly understood what was going on. They couldn't help but insult Lin Feng for his foolishness. They didn't understand what the situation was actually about. This was the result for insulting an elder of the sect. That ferocious beast is extremely powerful. If you force me into fighting it, then I will most likely die in an instant, said Lin Feng, who was still oppressed and shouted furiously. He wanted to go back, but Mo Xia had blocked him. PFFF, it seems like this time the shadow spirit isn't with him. Mo Xia thought cruelly. Then, he said loudly, abandoning others before a large battle, this disciple is the shame of the Yunhai sect. When Mo Xia finished talking, an extremely thick vine suddenly burst out of his body, threw itself at Lin Feng at an incredible speed. Lin Feng's body was burning under the pressure of the force that was oppressing him, and in the blink of an eye, he was then constricted by thick vine plants which surrounding his body. It had moved extremely quick and looked like a boa. At that moment, Lin Feng was absolutely unable to move. Spirit. It's his spirit. Mo Xia has a boa vine spirit. The crowd was shaking with roars of surprise. It looked like Mo Xia was determined to make sure that Lin Feng would fall into that death trap and die. If an ordinary disciple actually dared confront an elder of the sect, he was doomed. However, there were some people who didn't really agree with such a thing. They thought it wasn't fair to attempt killing an ordinary disciple, especially when the one attempting to murder them was a powerful elder in the sect. They thought that it was quite shameless for Mo Xia to act as he did, but nobody would dare to say anything. Who would dare to provoke Mo Xia? Lin Feng howled furiously. His sword was glowing, but it was constricted by the thick boa vine spirit like the rest of his body. There was nothing that he was able to move. Even though Lin Feng was a genius who was extraordinary and could definitely easily defeat cultivators of the same level or even of a much higher level than him, he was unable to defeat Mo Xia, who was an elder of the Yunhai sect. The gap between the two was gigantic. At that moment, Lin Feng was powerless. Impressive for an elder to bully a disciple, you're really shameless. At that moment, an ice-cold voice shouting was heard. Everybody in the crowd was surprised and stupefied. Surprisingly, the one who had said that was Liu Fei. The beautiful Liu Fei, who was desired by an incredibly huge amount of sect disciples. Huh? Mo Xia frowned and looked at Liu Fei. He groaned, but he didn't dare attack Liu Fei either. He knew Liu Fei's status and background. The funny thing is that Mo Xia's father, Mo Cang Lan, had the same name as Liu Fei's father, Liu Cang Lan. But Liu Cang Lan was of course much more popular and famous than Mo Cang Lan. Everybody knew the stories Liu Cang Lan in the Yunhai sect. Mo Xia's father paled in comparison. The bow-wielding genius, Liu Cang Lan, and the patriarch of the sect, Nan Gongling, were extremely arrogant yet popular when they were young. They cared a lot about their fellow disciples in the sect. They were both the best cultivators within the sect, they were geniuses. Their friendship was also very deep and sincere, they were truly like brothers. Liu Fei released her spirit and grabbed her silver bow from her back. She prepared 3 arrows in addition of the 3 arrows of her spirit and aimed at the boa vine spirit. Liu Cang Lan was extremely strong. Liu Fei envied her father's strength and power. Even though she bitterly hated Lin Feng, she couldn't bear the sight that was happening in front of her. Mo Xia was a very tiny personage, shameless and disgusting. Lu Fei didn't know if that attack was going to be of any use, but she still tried. As before, the boa vine spirit didn't move at all. Lin Feng looked amused for a second. He wouldn't have thought that Lu Fei would surprisingly be the one trying to help him in the last moments of his life. I have taken useless risks. I was too negligent. It's my fault, thought Lin Feng depressed. He wouldn't have thought that he would come across Mo Xia, and he had even less expected that Mo Xia would do such an evil and shameless thing. Besides, at that moment, Mo Xia was much stronger than him, so nobody was helping him. Lu Fei was an exception, but she wasn't strong enough. She tried to help, but in vain. Roar. The roar of the ferocious beast sounded violent and fierce. The beasts around it were also extremely quick, but there was still that gigantic black fog to be careful about. Nothing could resist it. The gigantic black fog was swallowing everything on its way through the forest. It was extremely strong, unimaginably powerful. It's so strong. It must be an imaginary demon. It's at least level 7. Mo Xia could sense that terrifying power getting nearer and nearer. That monster was at the 7th Ling level, which meant that it had the strength of a cultivator of the 7th Ling Qi layer. That strength was coupled with its natural strength as a ferocious beast, which meant he was even more powerful than a cultivator of the 7th Ling Qi layer. Cultivators had to practice to acquire a basic strength, whereas beasts already had a natural-born strength which was added their level. Mo Xia was observing Lin Feng and looking forward to seeing him die. Mo Xia, you bastard, shouted an extremely loud voice which seemed to be thundering through the air. The person to whom the voice belonged was nowhere in sight. Mo Xia's face immediately changed into a look of disbelief. His boa vine spirit suddenly released Lin Feng and surprisingly went towards the group of ferocious beasts. How dare you, shouted an extremely loud voice which made the ground tremble. That extremely violent and furious shout terrified the entire crowd. They were all trying to guess to whom that voice belonged and who could be that powerful within the sect. How dare you, shouted an extremely loud voice which made the ground tremble. That extremely violent and furious shout terrified the entire crowd. They were all trying to guess to whom that voice belonged and who could be that powerful within the sect. There was a flying crane which appeared in the air above, then transformed into a bright light. Its light was so blinding that the light from the sun was completely blotted out. The light immediately began attacking the ferocious beasts. It seemed like these ferocious beasts could sense that the person who had arrived was insanely powerful. They all started neighing, roaring and emitting other noises, but that imaginary demon didn't seem to be affected as much. Lin Feng was about to get absorbed by that black fog when the imaginary demon suddenly rolled away as if he was suddenly trying to escape. Ferocious beasts of the Ling level were not only able to absorb the qi of heaven and earth, but they were also very intelligent. They could feel and sense forces as well as powerful energies. It seemed like the imaginary demon had been affected by the force and energy emanating from the crane, which made it want to escape. The wings of the crane started emitting a brilliant and dazzling silver light. It then immediately flew through the crowd of ferocious beasts, and suddenly, a river of blood seemed to be flowing down the mountain. These terrifyingly strong and powerful ferocious beasts had surprisingly been defeated by the mysterious person. The possessor of Crane's spirit was extremely powerful. It was impossible to judge exactly how powerful he was. After all these ferocious wild beasts were destroyed, the black fog of that imaginary demon started dispersing through the atmosphere and turned into grey ashes. Lin Feng had vanished. Imaginary demon, as expected, its power is incredible. Some people in the crowd thought while looking at the imaginary demon. It was turning into a multitude of smaller imaginary demons. It didn't have a real body. Even if you were stronger than an imaginary demon, it was still very hard to catch. Suddenly, the wings of the crane started shaking very violently, which created a hurricane. Everybody in the crowd was falling down onto the ground from the pressure. Right after, the crane flew away and disappeared, leaving behind a massive amount of dead ferocious beasts lying down on the ground. How strong! Everybody was speechless. Chu Zhanpeng, who had come to the Yunhai sect not so long before, was also able to fly and had a legendary rock spirit. Even though he had similar skills and was also extremely strong, in comparison with this crane spirit, Chu Zhanpeng was a weakling. In a fight between the legendary rock and the crane, the legendary rock would not be able to withstand a single blow. A great majority of the people who were present had never seen such a strength before. They were very excited. They were wondering who that person was and how he was related to the sect. He was so strong that not a single ferocious beast could have given him a hard time. Our sect has existed for about 1,000 years. We are really the sect of the millennium. Even in periods of great prosperity, there are always hidden cultivators of amazing strength which have hidden amongst us. Everybody was extremely excited after watching such a display of power. They all hoped that one day they would have the chance to become that strong. At that moment, two people were moving through the sky. Even though their agility abilities were extremely developed, they were moving through the sky in a way which gave the impression it was an easy thing for everyone to do. These two people were surprisingly the patriarch Nan Gongling followed by Xue Cavalry. "What's going on?" asked Nan Gongling while falling from the sky onto the ground before landing in front of Xue. "Xue has been trying to kill one of our disciples. He pushed him towards the ferocious beasts so that he would get slaughtered by the monsters," said someone who was standing next to Liu Fei, whose eyes were filled with hatred. Liu Fei hated Lin Feng, but she hoped that she could become strong enough someday to regain her dignity and defeat Lin Feng. She didn't like to see Lin Feng treated in such an unjust way. Lin Feng was a real genius, he was even stronger than her and no one could treat him that way. Lin Feng could become a pillar of the Yunhai sect. Liu Fei was sad to see an elder treat Lin Feng that way. "Patriarch, this is untrue. There is one ordinary disciple who was killing all the ferocious beasts and stealing all the precious items. Then, when the stronger ones arrived, he deserted." "Damn him," said Xue, who was, obviously, not going to admit what he had done. Lin Feng was already dead anyway. Even if he didn't admit that he had killed Lin Feng, who would say anything? "Alright, today, you clearly wish to die today." An extremely loud and aggressive voice emerged. A hurricane was rolling through the air, blowing almost everyone away, and no one was able to stand steadily on their feet. Xue's face changed drastically. A terrifyingly powerful qi appeared and was surrounded by a radiant light. It then flew through the air and crashed into Xue's body. Boom! 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 The rock on which Xue currently standing exploded into 1,000 pieces and Xue's mouth spurted blood like a fountain. That single attack was extremely powerful. The elder Xue had been defeated in a single strike, he was bleeding endlessly, and all of this was done in the presence of his father, Xue Cavalry. The crowd had the impression they were watching a dream. They couldn't believe that it was really happening before their eyes. Then, the crowd looked again to see who had done that attack and saw an old man. Everybody recognized him. "Huh! That's the old man who is the entrance guard of the Xingqian Pavilion." Everybody was stunned. As a disciple of the Yunhai sect, everybody had already been to the Xingqian Pavilion. It had to be the old man. Who couldn't recognize Protector Bei? They were not used to seeing him like this though. They were used to seeing him looking almost asleep or lazy at the entrance of the Xingqian Pavilion. They would have never imagined that he could be so monstrously strong. At that moment, Protector Bei's eyes were filled with murderous intentions and he was moving slowly towards Xue. He then said in an ice-cold tone, "You're an elder of the Yunhai sect in charge of enforcing the sect rules, and yet you dare to kill a young disciple, a junior, of the sect. If I don't kill you, it means that the sect holds no place in my heart." Xue's face was deathly pale. He wouldn't have thought that, suddenly, someone would kill him just because of a simple disciple. A silhouette appeared before Xue and seemed to be vigilant. It was precisely Xue Lan. Protector Bay, don't you think that you are exaggerating a little bit? Exaggerating? Xue Lan, have you not educated your son, said Protector Bay extremely sharply, which made Xue Lan completely lose face. He then shouted, get the hell away. Protector Bay, do you have to be this furious? Asked Nan Gongling, who came in front of Protector Bay at the same time. Nan Gongling, of course, knew what kind of person Xue was, but when it came to the sect, he was still an important person. Besides, there was still Xue Lan. He was extremely strong and in charge of the elders. Therefore, attacking Xue would cause trouble amongst those standing at the top within the sect. Patriarch, let me handle this business, I am about clean up the sect today, said Protector Bay, ignoring everything which had been said until that moment. He regarded Lin Feng as the bright future of the sect. He thought Lin Feng was a gift bestowed upon his sect by the gods, and Xue had fed him to the ferocious beasts. Protector Bay, shouted Nan Gongling extremely loud, attempting to make Protector Bay regain his calm. Don't kill Xue, think about the sect above all, said Nan Gongling to Protector Bay. Think about the sect above all, said Protector Bay with a sort of smile on his face. He thought that killing Xue was particularly important for the sake of the sect. Nan Gong, do you know who that young man was? Protector wasn't shouting anymore. His voice was low and sounded it was filled with emotions. Nan Gongling was stupefied. He had no idea there were so many young disciples in the sect. If Protector Kong was here today, Xue would be dead already, said Protector Bay. That sentence was filled with meaning. His eyes were filled with pain and sorrow. He then said, think about the sect first. Nan Gong. In your life as patriarch, we will never be blessed with a talent like that again. When he finished talking, Protector Bay transformed into a crane again and suddenly vanished, leaving a hurricane behind him. Protector Kong, Nan Gongling couldn't believe he had heard the old man pronounce that name. He was shaking from head to toe. Nan Gongling obviously remembered and understood everything. That shadow which had protected Lin Feng last time was precisely Protector Kong's spirit. He had protected Lin Feng. He then remembered the 8 sounds of drums from the precipice of Zhanggu which had filled the entire atmosphere of the Yunhai sect. Boom! Nan Gongling's heart started pounding, his thoughts were flowing at full speed. He was getting more and more furious. He was starting to find himself being overwhelmed with murderous thoughts. Xue Lan could feel that the patriarch wanted to kill his son and that he was growing furious. What had happened? What had Protector Bay told Nan Gongling? Xue Lan glanced at Xue. That bastard of a son's behavior was really worse and worse. He was insolent and acted selfishly and relentlessly without thinking. Lin Feng had been wrapped up in that black fog, and immediately after he had gone through a mystical event. It had seemed like his body had been transported through the universe. He didn't know where he had landed. An extremely cold qi started to oppress his body and to dig into his flesh and bones. He wanted to struggle, but he didn't know what or how to fight against this qi. He realized he was extremely weak in comparison. When confronted with death, Lin Feng released his twin spirits. His eyes became pitch black and he became aware of all the universe that was surrounding him. However, as before, he was immersed in a world of darkness. Celestial Spirit. Lin Feng said in a low voice. A brilliant and resplendent light appeared. It was dazzling and mystical. Lin Feng suddenly saw 2 piercing cold eyes of a ferocious beast which was staring at him as if he was a prey. What's that? Is that a real ferocious beast? Lin Feng saw cruel eyes and a hideous face. It looked truly horrible. Many tentacles were approaching him as if they wanted to wrap themselves around him. At the same time, a tentacle had touched his spirit. His strange small snake spirit as well as his celestial spirit were being swallowed. Lin Feng was feeling so weak that he even thought that some of his vitality was slowly being consumed as well. At that moment, something very strange happened to Lin Feng. Something that had never happened before happened. His small snake spirit had moved for the first time. The snake was starting to move. The small snake was moving, it slowly started to open its mouth and the black fog suddenly started to pour into its mouth. The small snake was moving, it slowly started to open its mouth and the black fog suddenly started to pour into its mouth. Swallowing the black fog. Lin Feng could obviously feel and sense that his spirit had changed and was still changing. That small snake was becoming full of black fog. His snake spirit continued to swallow the black fog. The more it ate black fog, the bigger it grew. It was gradually growing larger and larger. Tentacles started to move towards the snake, but it didn't have any effect on the snake spirit. Strangely, the snake was swallowing them as well. Lin Feng was astonished. His snake spirit was consuming everything. Lin Feng had been utterly helpless when facing the ferocious beast of the Ling layer and thought he was about to die. He would have never thought that his small unawakened spirit, which was the reason for his nickname as Trash, would start moving so suddenly. There was something strange about the ferocious dark eyes, as if there was something wrong. There was a small twinkle which appeared in the eyes which were half filled with worry. Then a formation of dark tentacles and the black fog started to move away, but the snake threw itself towards them. Roar! Lin Feng was utterly stupefied. His snake spirit looked excited. It opened its huge and ferocious mouth. Inside, there were a multitude of tentacles and black fog in the process of being swallowed. It was not enough for his snake spirit. The previously little snake was growing bigger and bigger. From an initial size of 1/3 of a meter, it had grown to a meter in length. It seemed like it was a gluttonous snake trying to consume the world. The imaginary demon groaned and roared as it was fighting against the snake, but its body was still being gradually eaten by the snake spirit. The imaginary demon released Lin Feng and the black fog slowly disappeared. Roar! The snake made the same sound as the imaginary demon had made. It then swallowed as much black fog as it could and went back to Lin Feng's side. The snake spirit had become small again but was still much bigger than before. Then it rolled itself around Lin Feng's shoulder and fell asleep. It swallowed the imaginary demon. Lin Feng's eyes were wide open with shock. The black fog of the imaginary demon had completely disappeared without trace. That was the trash spirit. Lin Feng was speechless. At that moment, he had the sensation an immense strength was invading his body and a loud buzzing noise was resonating in his brain. He felt his vision grow blurry and he collapsed, completely losing consciousness. Lin Feng didn't know how much time had passed when he regained consciousness. When he opened his eyes, he was in a cave. It looked like that of a ferocious beast. Boom! Suddenly, Lin Feng's body seemed like it was being crushed, which terrified him. Panic filled his face and he felt pain that was indescribable. His heart was pounding. His dark spirit appeared along with his celestial spirit and suddenly, his mind began to become clear and undisturbed. His celestial spirit was also floating before his eyes in the form of a book. Immediately after, the small snake spirit also appeared. It was about 1 meter in length. Its body was becoming more solid and rigid. As before, it was still small and looked like it was asleep curled around Lin Feng's shoulder. It looked like it had a lot of affection for Lin Feng. From a glance they seemed to be very close and looked to have a deep connection. He had awakened his snake spirit. Something extraordinary happened which made Lin Feng tremble from head to toe. On his back a face had appeared. It had 2 ice-cold, pitch-black eyes. Imaginary demon, Lin Feng was still shaking and still trying to understand what had happened. How was this possible? At the moment when he had been swallowed by the imaginary demon, his snake spirit had suddenly appeared. A 3rd spirit. Multiple spirits? He was a real genius. He was truly gifted from the gods. On the continent, there was almost nobody who experienced such a thing. Out of 1 million of people, there was maybe 1 who happened to have 2 spirits. Surprisingly, Lin Feng even had 3. Was he a supernatural existence? A god? 3 spirits. He would be able to terrify everyone at the mere mention of it. He would scare his enemies to death. There was an unceasing milky white light circulating in and out of his body. It seemed to be the powerful qi from heaven and earth. It was encircling him and circulating through his body. Did I just break through to the second Ling Qi layer? Lin Feng's brain was somehow short-circuited with the shock of all these events. Even if he had released his spirit and was still able to remain calm to a certain extent, it was hard not to get excited considering the circumstances and the terrifying power of the things happening within his body. Lin Feng was using all of his mental focus to try and understand all the things that had occurred. It looks like that small snake is able to swallow ferocious beasts and enables me to use them and their power. It also seems like it is able to absorb them into itself and use them to increase my strength. Lin Feng was just conjecturing what was happening, but a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Trash spirit. People laughed at him because they thought his spirit was useless, but it was actually extremely powerful. If all those people who constantly laughed at him, bullied him and called him a piece of trash because of spirit, knew that he had such a powerful ability granted from his snake spirit, how would they react? Damn, I only narrowly climbed from my own grave. I have escaped from the pit and this will be the end of all the hardships I have suffered until now. Lin Feng recalled his spirits back into his body. He looked up to the sky and uttered a long cry. He didn't know where he was at that moment though. He could only analyze the situation considering all of his past experiences and knowledge. Celestial fangs. These fangs can devour anything. That's a good name. Lin Feng whispered. That's the best name Lin Feng could think of to refer to his spirit, to that small snake. Celestial fangs. Mos yeah. If I don't kill you, I swear, I will make your life not worth living or my name is not Lin Feng. Lin Feng stood up and his eyes filled with incredible killing intent. Lin Feng took a deep breath and as he did, the air in his throat tasted filthy. It tasted like a ferocious beast. Lin Feng looked carefully around him and it seemed like he was in the cave of a ferocious beast which made him feel extremely uncomfortable and nervous. Lin Feng quickly moved outside of the cave. Outside was a huge forest. Its trees were crushed into pieces. It seemed like its trees had been crushed by ferocious beasts that had trampled through the area. The smell of ferocious beasts still filled the air. He could even sense the ground shake under his feet at times. He could hear them roar and neigh in the distance. It seems like the flood of ferocious beasts hasn't stopped. Lin Feng had just encountered a large group of ferocious beasts where the imaginary demon was, but he knew that there were still other groups filled with extremely powerful ferocious beasts. The Black Wind Mountain was full of extremely strong ferocious beasts. He released his dark spirit. His eyes became pitch black. His sense of hearing and his vision became extremely well developed. He could see and sense everything in his surroundings. His brain was also processing all the data it received very quickly. It was as if he could sense and understand the whole area around him, as if he was looking down on a strategy map. At the same time, the strong qi of ferocious beasts was revolving around Lin Feng's feet on the ground. It had started enveloping Lin Feng's body until it completely covered it. Lin Feng entered into a transcendent state of mind. Wrapped inside that qi, it became impossible to see Lin Feng from the outside. It was the imaginary demon which had given Lin Feng its power. That imaginary demon was extremely powerful and its impression was enhanced. This was why it was impossible to see the imaginary demon's real body. It was just a gigantic black fog as far as anyone could see. Lin Feng, thanks to his spirit consuming the imaginary demon, now had that ability too. The imaginary demon's skill was imprinted onto Lin Feng's mind and could be used naturally. In the Black Wind Mountain, there was an incredible amount of ferocious beasts. They were not only in one place but were everywhere in the territory. Because some ferocious beasts were extremely strong, Lin Feng had to be very careful. He could use his qi to pretend he was a ferocious beast himself thanks to his new ability. These ferocious beasts were running madly everywhere in the Black Wind Mountain. As the number of ferocious beasts had greatly increased, they were running towards the outskirts as if trying to conquer new territory. At that moment, the qi which surrounding Lin Feng really seemed to be that of a ferocious beast. Lin Feng started to walk. Some small and weak ferocious beasts passed by Lin Feng. Surprisingly, all these small ferocious beasts emitted small and cute sounds indicating that they were submitting themselves to him. The world of the ferocious beasts was even rougher than that of cultivators. It was ruled by the law of the jungle, the weak would become the food for the strong. Even some Ling-level ferocious beasts were running away when they sensed Lin Feng's presence. Adult ferocious beasts of the Ling level were at least level 5, which was quite terrifying. However, ordinary ferocious beasts of the Ling level could not compare themselves to the imaginary demon. The depths of the Black Wind Mountain are really frightening. Lin Feng realized how terrifying the depths of the Black Wind Mountain were, and he couldn't help but think about before, when he was still at the Qi layer and dared come here without being scared at all. How ignorant was he? If they had met any of the ferocious beasts of the Ling level, they probably would have died. Of course, in the eyes of a ferocious beast of the Ling level, a cultivator of the Qi layer was like an ant. Maybe these ferocious beasts wouldn't even have looked at them, just like Lin Feng looks at ordinary low-level ferocious beasts. This is a great opportunity. Why am I not hunting and killing ferocious beasts to gather precious items? Lin Feng started being both nervous and excited. Ling-level ferocious beasts were not like ordinary ones. They could absorb the qi of the earth, and the precious items he could get from them were extremely valuable. If he gave these items to the elders within the sect to trade, they could produce profound pills or weapons for the Ling Qi layer. Besides, some of the energies these ferocious beasts absorbed were also extremely useful in increasing a person's cultivation. Good profound healing pills could cure injuries, including broken bones. It was even said that some pills could resurrect the dead. Good weapons could help greatly enhance one's attack and defense skills in battle. All of these items could be acquired and bought in exchange for precious items recovered from these ferocious beasts. This is why so many people took the risks to travel here and kill ferocious beasts. They wanted to acquire precious items to trade. Lin Feng had the feeling that he was far too poor. Apart from the soft sword, which was given to him by Protector Bei, and the profound healing pills which Protector Kong had given to him, he actually had nothing of value. He had indeed never taken the time to consider his wealth and equipment.